Today's episode is not brought to you by BetterHelp. I know that's shocking for a podcast, but it's true. I'm your host, not Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution podcast. Welcome or welcome back. Peace to the mods, peace to the chat, and happy Pride Month. This week on TIR, we discussed everything from the history of Rainforest Action Network to the rationality of looks maxing to the LA riots. What other channel would give you that? If you missed any of those episodes, check them out after this show. And if you're watching and not subscribed, join our 20,000 subscribers on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button. It's free. And if you watch and don't subscribe, technically that's stealing. If you're already subscribed, unsubscribe from every other channel to prove your loyalty. Also, we are not a cult. All right, let's get to what you came here for. There is a creature that lives in a slowly gentrifying environment, the domestic human. The male specimen is relaxing on a flat-pack sofa he once assembled using nothing but an Allen wrench, some confusion, and a 43-minute YouTube tutorial. Out of nowhere, a sound. The ringing of a doorbell signifies another human has arrived. It wears the ceremonial garments of the food delivery guild known as Domino's. The male has exchanged digits on a luminous screen for warm bread products and molten cheese. The delivery human presents him with a bountiful offering. After feeding, the domestic human returns to his habitual pattern of scrolling through his device while pretending he's also watching Weekend at Bernie's, a movie he's already seen 307 times. But with a world of adventure calling, he mustn't waste too much time. With his roommates absent from the habitat, the domestic human ventures into the digital dating market. Humans conduct courtship rituals through filtered photographs, ironic bios, and messages that only consist of the word "hey" in this brutal ecosystem. After several hours of swiping rituals, one potential mate somewhat acknowledges his existence. This temporarily stimulates the creature, but he soon becomes exhausted by digital courtship. Our domestic human then retreats deep into the safety of the social media algorithm. Tonight will be another long night for the human, but he is not yet safe. Because unlike the loneliness in the rest of nature, human loneliness has become economically useful. Now, let's bring in the folks who will help us cope during this discussion about coping. First up, he is the author of Strange Exiles, the Substack, the host of Strange Exiles, the podcast, and an editor at Revol Press. He is Bram Gieben.
Hello, how you doing, Toussaint?
Hi, good to see you.
Thanks for having me back on so soon. It's a great privilege.
Of course, of course. Next up, she is part writer, part DSA member, and 100% chaotic good. She is the Cynthia. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you all today?
That's so accurate. That's such an accurate description of me. By the way, I also have a Substack. It's called Salacious Reason. So Jason needs to know that.
You gotta get us the link and we'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
All right.
I mean, not like I'm consistent with it as I want to be, but
that's okay. We can all be Bram.
We're trying. I know, Bram. What about that introduction?
I'm cheating right now. I had like a year's worth of stuff in the bag, so that's the only reason I'm regular at the moment.
A year's worth. Okay, that's exciting. I really like your Substack. So let's get started by talking about, of all things, work. I have visuals, you guys. So here we have Homer Simpson. He's a man who works with his friends and spends time with them doing things like recreationally drinking at a bar and bowling. So my question to you two is, Why do adults increasingly lack recurring social contact?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. Like, is Homer, as depicted in the show, even that realistic at the moment? Like
Hmm.
a lot of the episodes, you'll see him sort of like messing around in work with Lenny and Carl.
Hmm.
They spend a lot of time in the bar after work. They all go to the same bar. I think like modern workplaces are a lot more atomized than that. Certainly the idea that you would work in a nuclear plant and have that kind of bonhomie, I don't know if I find that as credible as I did like 20 years ago when the Simpsons was, just getting started or getting warmed up. Something like Cheers seems impossibly utopian now. Like this idea of a
Hmm.
place where like everybody knows your name, and you come in and there's a ready-made like social circle. There are like relationships that have grown out of this circle of friends, and it's all centered around a business. Like businesses are much more, they don't really sell community anymore in the same way, although they'll talk a lot about selling community. They sell experiences, and the experience is over once you've consumed the product. So I think it's a lot harder to find the kind of companionship that even Homer has as a guy with a fairly sort of limited social life. Makes me
Hmm.
think of that film Bowling Alone, which I think was about the loneliness epidemic in the US.
Hmm.
um, even those social rituals, those social clubs, a lot less common than they used to be, I think.
It's very true. It's interesting. It wasn't, well, The Simpsons did start a long time ago. It was in the 90s, but
Mm.
that was relatable in the 90s, I think, or they assumed it was. Maybe not so much now. What do you think, Cynthia?
I mean, I guess I don't have anything like that I can draw on from an intellectual perspective. Like I would love to be able to reference some book that I've read about, about alienation. So I feel a little like out of my league, but I'm just talking from a vibes perspective and like, what I've, I guess, absorbed from the various things that I watch and articles that I read, yada, yada, yada. And also my own lived experience, right? Like even, I mean, that was an interesting point about like the workplace today.
Hmm.
Uh, is it even more, what's the word, atomized? Is that what you said? For
Yeah.
some reason I'm thinking itemized in my head, but that's not right. Atomized, and how people are even more separated. I mean, I guess like, yeah, I mean, yeah. I think, well, okay. I think there are like these underlying factors too that contribute to the culture uh being increasingly atomized or like compounded on itself. Like for example, the extreme precarity of the job market right now and the extreme precarity in our economy makes it such that I feel like the factors that already contributed to the alienation or to the atomization in the workplace, it's like, you know, expanded. Like it's even more so because people are perhaps, however unconsciously, holding on for dear life, basically. So it's like, I mean, like, for example, in my workplace right now, like there's this sense of who can we trust? And like even more so. And I've experienced this in like other workplaces too, where it's like everyone's competing, so uh, um, viciously sometimes, that causes
Right.
them to be less attuned to perhaps like organizing together or coming together for their own interests because they're so terrified of losing their job. They're so terrified of losing, their sense of security there.
Mhm.
But obviously, the horrific irony of that is like, yeah, but if you actually did come together, then you could help in alleviating this kind of precarity, right? But also I just thought of like the Knicks right now, like the reason why the city right now feels so exciting and so alive with the Knicks in the playoffs and doing, or in the finals. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Whatever's going on, whatever they're in, they're doing well. But like people are literally in the streets watching the games and
Mhm.
together in the streets and dancing and like it's such an electric feeling, that feeling of community and coming together. And like, yeah, like people are on their phones and they're videoing and whatever, but like they're mainly together in the present moment, in space. Their bodies are in space together, and it's just such an electric feeling that we have to remember to hold on to, because the reason why you feel so depleted and you feel so lonely is because of the way, like, we're experiencing all of the downstream effects of how we've, at this point, set up society and the economy.
I think you make a really good point about, physical interactions in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that sport. I'm no sports fan. I don't know what a Knicks is, but it's like you actually are coming together for a shared purpose, and there's increasingly like less and less of that in human interactions, and that includes the workplace. I got my current job at the start of COVID, so we were set up for remote working. We work on screens, we meet in meeting rooms on software, to the point where they're trying to get us back to the office now. But quite often you go into the office, and even though you're talking to the people you're working with in the office, when you have a meeting, there might be 4 more people dialing in. So you're going to this virtual space. And, you mentioned social media and technology in your intro, Toussaint, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But I think like one of the key things here in this whole debate is we don't really interact with people anymore. We interact with systems. And even when we are interacting with people, it's often mediated through these systems. But that's not to say that like the technology is what's causing the loneliness epidemics. Loneliness was an economy sort of long before the smartphone. And I think it does go back to this idea of community in public space. Like this began when figures like Thatcher and Reagan began a wave of neoliberal expropriation and privatization of the public commons, and of public services. And so this robs us of public space and shared activities and that sense of any social safety net. It's a very zero-sum world that we view solely through this lens of kind of competitive dick measuring status gains. Just as Cynthia was saying, the competitive pressure in a precarious workplace is turbocharged. So social media and smartphones don't necessarily cause this. They're like the natural evolution of it. They're the perfect product of this set of circumstances we've created, where everything is run through systems. And that's, if you look at it from a kind of cyberpunk dystopian point of view, as there is a push towards like the metaverse and augmented reality, you've got all of these technological platforms which are designed to simulate connection. And the more that you live in a world of simulated connections, the more that the real world is overlaid with graphics and purchase options, and it's tracking your eyeballs through your through your smart glasses. That's just going to keep eroding these moments of public community and public coming together, to the point where like maybe all that will be left will be the Knicks game. That'll be the only big enough social event to actually get people into a physical space. I guess protest as well is another arena where I think that's one reason, even though protest hasn't been particularly effective in achieving its goals over the last 10 years, it still provided a sense of real community in a way that sort of the online version of community doesn't.
Nice.
Yeah, totally.
Political Economy asks, if you work with a lot of people, is that lonely?
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, I had a look at some of the statistics, and what is interesting is that living in a dense urban environment or having lots of people around you, you're actually more likely to feel lonely in that situation. People describe themselves as feeling more lonely the closer they live to, a dense urban center. It does have other benefits, maybe, some amenities are in walking distance, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those connections are easy to build. People move to cities and move away very quickly. Or you're, again, interacting through systems, going through an app like Hinge or Bumble. But the numbers are staggeringly high. I think in the UK, 6% of people say they feel lonely all the time. 25% of people say they feel lonely regularly. And the figures are even higher in the US. 22% of people claim to feel lonely all of the time. 50%, definitely experience that sometime. That's half the population. And it has an attached cost as well. I think from the figures I read, loneliness costs the US economy 406 billion, most of that just from absenteeism. So, something's not working both in the world of work and in the wider world in terms of how we connect with people. And the lower economic status you have, the more lonely, more likely you are to report that you feel lonely all the time. Younger people are reporting feeling lonelier in greater and greater numbers. And of course, old age has got significant challenges. Your friendship group sort of melts away as you get older. And if you've not had a family and you end up in a care home, I mean, that's one of the loneliest positions that you could hope to be in. And so, yeah, the loneliness economy feeds on all these things, right?
I mean, best case scenario, you end up in one of those senior communities. A lot of people can't afford that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Community, I guess.
Hmm.
I mean, that's such a good point, though, about I feel like the common misconception is that the phones and the internet is what contributes to the loneliness versus the phones and the internet sort of being, what's the word, like an arbiter of the, or no, I don't know if that's the right word, but
Precursor.
complementing the loneliness, like a vehicle for a vehicle in which the loneliness can thrive. And that the kind of loneliness, and I know I'm not using this term in like its Marxist sense, but like the alienation from each other in society being downstream of how we set up and organize society, from like an economic perspective. So the more basically, like, it seems to me that the more neoliberal we have become, the more separate, and the more, because it heightens this, like, the precarity, and it heightens the sense of competition with each other. Which then heightens the suspense, or heightens the feeling of being suspicious of other people and afraid of other people, because the more that you're in competition with other people for resources, the more fearful you could become of said other people, like, they're going to take my stuff. I mean, I feel like that's the kind of sensibility that trickles into the workplace. It's like, if we're all working, if we're not organized, we're not unionized, we're not like doing something together for our collective interests, we're all in competition with each other to like get ahead. So that sensibility of us all being in competition with each other to just get ahead contributes, like, these are the effects of that, right? Because the more removed you are from community, the more lonely you become. And the more loneliness becomes like a prevalent like sickness in the society, right?
That brings me to my next question very nicely. So, if we're spending so many hours at work, sometimes it feels like you're spending more time at work than with your family. You're just visiting your family, and your real family is at work. So, Cynthia, how are we supposed to socialize through work, but also distrust our coworkers because they're not our friends?
Oh, God. Well, I'm really bad at this. I mean, this is why I don't fit into all this, because because I have found that at like my workplace currently, I just make friends with people because I'm a human being, and like, I love people, and I love, interacting with people, asking them about their lives, getting the tea about, what's going on. And like, I'm in this position right now where it's like, I need to be loyal to the boss, and and I'm like, that ain't me, Jack. Like, sorry to channel Biden at the moment, but it's like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm not a robot. I'm not like some loyal drone. I like to socialize with people and create connections, and I'm not gonna be in this weird culture of like, I mean, I guess we could call it like neoliberal hell culture, of just always be suspicious of each other and paranoia and like competing with each other, it doesn't really work for me. So it ain't working. No, it ain't working at the moment. And the part that you noted about the family, I mean, that to me is like, I just feel like we are so overdue for at least the 4-day work week. Like, that needs to happen yesterday. Like, someone I work with it's literally sad, because it's very sad because I've heard him say, you know, like I barely have time to see my son because a lot of the work week is not just contributing to or is not just about, you know, the hours that he's spending at work, but like the commute from New Jersey in and out, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really think that we could shave down the work week and maybe even the work hours. I mean, what about 10 to 4 or something like that? Do we really need to be working there 8 hours a day? I've seen people on Twitter be like, we should end work at like 3 p.m. It's so true. It's like after fucking 3 p.m., my body starts to like collapse. And it's just, I mean, everyone knows this. It's like, you know what I mean? Like if you work at 9 to 5, or even if you work sort of within that time, it's just like, God, by the time it gets to be like 2:33, you're like, can I just like get out of here already? You know, and most of the time, especially with all this technology and all this production and all this new whatever, it's like, yeah, we should be able to get the fuck out of here at 3 p.m. You know, we should be able to have our Fridays off. Like we should be like people. And just last quick point on this rant. And I think that the left needs to be really hammering this point home about family values and reclaiming that from the right as it pertains to like the 4-day work week and unionizing your workplace. Because you're like, we are the party or the, you know, whatever. We are the people who want to give you more time with your family. We're the people that want you to spend more time with your kids. Like, we are for the 4-day work week. You know, we are for unionizing your workplace so that you can get better benefits for you and your families so that you're not constantly struggling. I mean, I've seen this. I've seen certain politicians like kind of say things like this, but I think it could just be hammered home with way more intensity, you know?
I'd wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think, you know, you've mentioned unions at one point. You know, unions aren't just about collective bargaining or solidarity in the workplace. You know, certainly in the UK, we had like a strong tradition of things like working men's clubs, where people who were union members could go and socialize. And those were cultural hubs as well as being, you know, shared social spaces. So there are things in the tradition of labor movements, quite apart from the power of collective bargaining, that got us things like the weekends, you know, or basic protections in work. Quite apart from that, they had a social function too. But just to kind of speak to Cynthia's points about how much we work, like I think people who talk about work-life balance are absolutely full of shit. Like, how can there be any kind of balance when out of a potential 7 days you work 5? That's not balance. And I think it's really interesting the language that companies try to use. You know, they talk about well-being. They talk about, you know, they provide like advice networks or counseling. They, you know, try and kind of phrase things like time to talk day is one we have in the UK, where you're encouraged to speak about your mental health struggles at work. You know, this is all cloaked in the language of care and in the language of sort of almost like not even medicalizing, but just like a very sort of like be kind attitude. Like, companies love to sell themselves as like this, and they do that as much through their branding as they do through their like HR and welfare policies. But while we're, you know, we're struggling at work, not just with the long hours and the fact that, you know, productivity is seemingly down, but we all seem to be working much longer hours, you know, even not counting the commute. And it's like, why do we do that? Like, we know for a fact that even people on 6-figure salaries in America are struggling paycheck to paycheck. We just, you know, like one of the things that increases precarity is not having enough money to spend on the basics. And if people who have a reasonably middle class income are struggling, you know, people in the rungs farther down the economic you know, shit pile that we live in are struggling even more, you know, reliance on food banks and aid programs and things like that. So I mean, the question is, why do we do that? Like, obviously the answer is necessity. Everybody's got to find a way to pay the bills and get to the next screen. But I think there's something as well in the idea of, like, you know, attainment culture. This kind of goes back to like the idea of the American dream. I think I was listening to Mark Andreessen talk about how the best
I'm
thing about
sorry to hear that.
capitalism. Oh yeah, don't worry, I'm marked safe. I survived another Joe Rogan podcast. I always listen to the Rogan shows when it's like a real piece of shit, like Andreessen on it. I think you get a lot more of that out of those ones, especially seeing how Rogan kind of kisses their ass. But yeah, Andreessen was basically saying that like the promise of capitalism is that the more graft that you put in, the more money you can make. And we should always respect people who work 70 hours to try and hustle and make themselves millionaires. But the dream of that is really, you know, kind of the trick that keeps you going under capitalism, right? You think you could be the one. Most of us are kind of exhausted and struggling to keep up, but we sort of allow ourselves every once in a while to think how things would be different if like fate dealt us a different hand. We could get that big job, the big promotion, the big break, even like the big lottery win. But what sum of money is there that would put you beyond the reach of the need to ceaselessly earn and spend? I mean, is there such a sum of money, or is there a point where you get above a certain sum of money and you just need more and more and more? You know, and certainly in terms of the taxing schemes that we, you know, the tax regimes that we have in place on both sides of the pond, the tax burden on the upper middle classes is particularly intense. It's, you know, a large, significant chunk of your income. But once you get into owning property or assets, and once you're, you know, getting dividends on investments, suddenly the tax burden is reduced to almost nothing. And then at the far end of that, of course, you have the billionaire class, you know, who have all sorts of tactics from like offshoring, you know, charitable giving, all ways to kind of keep a bigger and bigger share of their money. So yeah, the idea that we will ever attain that magic sum that will mean we don't have to work, that's a very, very naive dream. It's about as naive as the idea that you would win the lottery. You know, the odds are astronomical.
We have this comment from Kushlook. He says, great point. I think that this is why no 4-day work week. Having 5+ days is a political test to ration the scarcity of demanded hours, not about production at all. I feel like there are employers who would move to a 4-day work week, but make it a 10-hour workday.
Yeah.
To try to, you know, yeah.
There are a lot of companies now which have a model which is like you can work 365 days a year if you want, but you don't get sick pay and you don't get holidays. You know, that's a fairly common incentive structure now. And again, it's this idea of hustle culture, you know, and I'm not immune to that either. You know, I work a 40-hour week and then I'm, you know, engaged in my hustle, which is like making podcasts, writing books. None of those things are particularly remunerative. That's not the thing I'm getting out of it. But we are all encouraged to hustle, right? Like like very few people just do their day job. Yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, you know, even if it's like investing on crypto through an app, you've got a side hustle, right?
I mean, just the fact that like 40 hours a week isn't like doesn't cut it for so many of us. I mean, it doesn't cut it for me right now. I had to take a pay cut from my last job, and I'm earning I'm earning hourly now versus salary because I was laid off last year with a bunch of people. And it's like, you know, and the best that I could get is an hourly temp job. So like, you know, now, and then it's 40 hours a week and it's like barely scraping by. So yeah, it just feels like even getting a job, like even if I were to get a full-time permanent salaried position, the permanent in that isn't guaranteed, especially in this moment. Like it doesn't even feel like that is something that, like, I just growing up, it's like, you know, my boomer parents, my mom would always say, like, that's your meal ticket. Like college is your meal ticket. And, you know, just get a good job with good benefits and like you're set for life. She'd always use that phrase, like you're set for life. Yeah, that ain't true anymore. Like that was true for our boomer parents. I mean, my parents had different jobs within the same industries, but like for the most part, they were employed like their entire lives. You know, like I don't think either of them ever got like late, like, you know, swept in a round of layoffs. It's like now it feels like there's like layoff season, you know, like it's there's like just it's just like this extreme precarity. That's such a good point. I forgot who made that. Kushlik?
Mhm.
Kushlik 777. Shout out, friend of the show. Yeah, that was a good point. Like it feels like it's more of this sense of arbitrary control, of like making sure that like, well, don't, it just feels very like if you give a mouse a cookie, like, well, if you give them the 4-day work week, what are they going to ask for then? If you give them free healthcare, like, what are we going to do? It's just because they can feel that sense of control slowly eroding from them, and they don't want that because, I mean, it's the same with remote work. Like now I know that can be very alienating as well. But for me personally, because I am a, artist, creator, writer, filmmaker, wannabe podcaster person, like, yeah, I personally am not married to the workplace. Like, yeah, I like interacting with people. I like being social, but like I can be social in my real life. Like I don't need to be in an office. I, in fact, do not like it because, again, a lot of my time is like designated to just like commuting. And it's in New York City, it's very exhausting. Like the energy of this city is very exhausting. So I, have seen that in a lot. I mean, there are some jobs that are completely remote. There's some jobs that are like, you need to come in 2 days a week or 3 days a week. My last job, I just found out like it was 3 days a week in office. And now it's like 4 days. Like, it's like, why? What? There's literally no point. The productivity didn't go down at all. Like, why are you now making people come in on Monday? Like, that doesn't make any sense, but it's just in line with that same sensibility of like, well, we don't want them to think that like they, they can have too much freedom because then what would they do next? It's like consistently just needing to keep people on a short leash because otherwise you're just going to lose control. So
maybe they want you to feel like you're part of the company.
Oh God!
No,
Yeah.
I think they want you to feel miserable, so you buy more products. Like being called back into the office 3 days a week is way more about putting $15 every day in the till at Pret a Manger than it is about sort of increasing productivity. Like the numbers speak for themselves. And you're right to say that like that choice is political, right? Like that choice to have that office culture. But in terms of like your degree being your meal ticket, like similarly, child of boomer parents, the aim for them, for me, was find a job which you can stay in for your whole life that gives you security. But this is maybe one of the reasons that the loneliness epidemic like impacts young people even more, is that what are the jobs that are disappearing? It's the entry level jobs. It's the jobs that you could get when you walked out of college with a degree at a low level in an industry that then had progression. Those are the jobs that are drying up. Those are the jobs that are going to be lost to AI. Not that long ago, we were telling everybody, go learn to code. Code is a growing industry. If you learn to code, you'll be able to get in ahead of this technological progress that's happening. And within 10 years, most of those coder jobs are now going to be done, by Claude if they're not being done by it already. So yeah, I think these problems are even more pronounced for young people. This precarity is being ratcheted up as the generations go by. I feel relatively privileged to be in the precarious position that I'm in. We managed to get by, and but for a lot of years for me it wasn't like that, and it was check to check or long hours and hilarious paychecks when I was working in journalism. I mean, that all of the jobs that I sort of like trained for and wanted to do are very elite industries now, publishing, journalism. If you want to make money in those industries, then it's extremely useful to have been born to wealthy parents, so no wonder people are disconnected. A lot of people would love to have the problem of being forced into the office just so they could pay their rent, I'm sure. But even, capitalism wants to keep you insecure no matter where you are on the scale, up to a certain point where you become one of the elites, and everything gets a lot easier.
Well, that also contributes to the loneliness of how, like, for example, because I'm so tired, like after work, and by the time I get home, it's like, almost 7 or whatever. And you got to make dinner. You want to just be able to relax, and then you have to go to bed because I want to get a good night's sleep. So, I have to wake up and do it all over again. And it's like, I'm less incentivized to like join the community kickball team. Like, when am I going to have time to do that? You know, at like 8 p.m. on a Tuesday? I mean, I'm already suffering enough as okay, I need to like, I'm not suffering that bad, but like in my mind, I'm struggling because, you know, I have like a DSA meeting. Like, I mean, I just convinced him to be like, you got to make this biweekly, you know, like, cause I'm on a committee and it's like already with that. And then I'm taking a friend of the show, friend of the pod, Alex Herbert's modern European history class.
Oh, wow.
Then, yeah, I know. He's great. We love him. He hates me. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, sort of. Him and Jason have like a love-hate relationship with me, I think. But we love them so much. I'm sorry, but yeah, that, you know, it's like I have that class, of course it's like online, and then I have like DSA meeting, and then I'm just struggling to be like, yeah, like when am I gonna have, and then the weekend, it's 2 days. So it's like, I've got shit to do. Like I've got errands to run. I've got laundry to do. I've got, you know, all this bullshit that I have to do. And when am I supposed to do that? So it's like, that kind of setup disincentivizes one to go and do like community things because you're thinking, I don't even understand how people with children are doing this. Like, I don't get it. And it does make me wonder though, like, but what about our parents? Like, I mean, I guess a big point is like church, right? Like people have been going to church less and less and less over the decades. And that was probably a big factor of community for a lot of people, of going to church on Sunday. So, you know, I guess if you worked 5 days a week, 40 hours, and you had kids and a family, but you would go to church on Sunday, and that was a big, you know, communal experience.
I think people still go to church, but because this is a pretty religious country, I think there's just more going on at church. And so that is the third place that people go to. Like they're not going bowling. They're going to church for another day. They're going to church on Wednesday because they're doing a special thing at church on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thing.
But what about bowling?
I know. I wonder about that, but you're skipping ahead. We're gonna we're gonna move into talking about more personal, more intimate relationships. So let me start with this. The dating app Bumble is now phasing out its signature swipe mechanism in favor of an AI-driven matchmaking assistant called Bee. The tool essentially dates you first, then passes you on to their cute friend who you might like instead. These apps once promised connection, but now they're creating burnout. And so, in response to the burnout they're creating, they proposed an AI solution to help you manage the burnout that they created. So, have dating apps now assumed that people are too emotionally exhausted to talk to each other?
Oh, absolutely.
Can I just say how much I hate that? Like that whole idea. I hate it so much.
You know, like I literally felt my soul leave my body. Speaking. This is why I'm everybody knows, if you've ever seen me on the show, I'm fundamentally against dating apps because it's part of this whole culture that I find abhorrent. And I have not yet read the Pope's encyclical. Is that what it's called? But there was something in there there was a phrase in there that struck me that he talked about like the data of the human or something. Like it's impossible to get to like the data of the human. I think that was the phrase. And that just made me think of dating apps because I was like, yeah, I mean, that's the reason why it grates at my soul so much, because I hated this experience of like, and I've basically like over the years, I feel like when they were first coming out, I always hated the idea because I'm very big on like, and I'm not saying everyone has to be like me. I get it. Everyone has different whatever. But I am very much like, I want things to happen organically. I don't want things to feel forced. I mean, ideally in every facet of my life, but especially with like love and relationships and interpersonal matters. I want things to just, you know, happen and come about, and you meet someone and you feel the connection, ideally in person. Now, it doesn't always have to be in person. Like maybe you meet someone online and you're like, oh, like I feel something here. You can feel the vibe through the screen. Absolutely. but it's obviously more pronounced when you're in person, and you can sense it, at a greater clip, I suppose, in person. But I always hated the idea of it because it just feels like this itemized way of viewing relationships, and this, I call it like spreadsheet thinking, way of like playing chess in your mind about, I don't know, it all feels very mechanical to me and very gross. And like with all of the new AI shit added, it just feels even more disrespectful to the self and the soul. And like the Pope said, I mean, I don't, it reduces people to like data points, and it reduces people to, I mean, even to photos. There are people that I have met in person, and then I feel a vibe or whatever. And then maybe we like add each other on Instagram or something like that. And I just think like, if I only saw it's not like they're not attractive, but I just know that if I only saw their photos, I can't quite explain this, but maybe people understand. I'm like, I feel like if I saw them on a dating app, I probably wouldn't be like that into their photo. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not like they're not attractive, but just like, okay. But like in person, there was something there that felt really real. And, or after a couple of times of seeing each other in person, it like grows and evolves. So yeah, I just like hate all of it. So and I will shame you for because I just feel like it's just contributing to this culture that we want to get rid of, like, and my friend and I were talking the other day, like, I don't know if it's Tinder or Bumble or whatever, Hinge, whatever, but I remember like, again, throughout the years, I'll just like randomly download it, like just be like, what's on there? Like, I just want to see, like, it's just kind of fun. And sometimes it's just a little fun, right? To like swipe through and see who's in your city or whatever. And I'm just like on there and I'm like, wait a minute, I have to pay for a subscription service to like scroll through people that may or may not want to go on a date with me. And then when someone comes across my feed who I guess is like out of my league or whatever, but who's on the dating market as someone who like, the app knows a lot of women want. And I'm like, well, yeah, that is like an attractive man and I'm interested in him. I then have to pay like $10 more to send him a rose. What the fuck is that? That is disgusting and like completely disrespectful to humanity. I did it. I think once I did it, I degraded myself and sent a rose to some, I don't know, CEO and entrepreneur who, like, I'm sorry, was attractive. And then, he never got back to me. So I just spent $10 of my temp job money. No, I mean, this was before, but like, it was degrading. It was a degrading experience. And I hope that no one is going through that.
The app got the money, and that's what's important. You wanted to say something, Bram?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just say, like you mentioned, like it's like a chess-like approach, like in terms of you feel that you're going into the app with some strategy.
Yes.
But again, it's way more like a slot machine than it is like chess in actual fact, in terms of what's happening from the app's point of view. These are businesses that are worth billions and billions of dollars. I think the Tinder and Hinge are owned by a group called the Match Group. And again, just billions in profitability. But where does the profit come from? I watched a YouTube video about dating apps today, and it made a really good point. And it was like, basically, if dating apps worked, if they were about getting people into relationships with whom they were compatible, then what would happen was you would use the app until that happened, and then you would stop using it, or maybe you would come back if that relationship didn't work out. But that's not how most people are using it. Most people are using it a little, in a kind of social media-ified way. They're presenting a curated version of themselves, and they're also looking for an idealized version of the person that they think that they want. What's lacking from that is what Cynthia described, like the chemistry that can happen between two people when they're in a room together. And the apps know this, and they want to maximize the time that you spend on the app. So what this video was telling me is that there's like almost like a funnel when you go into the app. So when you first subscribe, the algorithm's wide open. It's showing you as many conventionally attractive people as it can. You've got a certain number of free swipes. And as you spend more and more time on the app, like that cone narrows, like you're seeing fewer and fewer people. It's showing you fewer and fewer people. You're being shown to fewer and fewer people. And it's at that point that it asks you to spend $10 and send a rose. It's at that point that the little pop-up comes up saying, do you want to be a premium tier member? So there's algorithmic trickery happening here to keep you on the app, to keep you interested, and to get you on the hook and get you paying for these services. So yeah, this is another very extractivist model, and in a very direct way, it's preying on loneliness, because if you lack the ability to go out and find those connections in a natural way, that's where you're going to turn. And as soon as you turn there, you're prey to another algorithm. Just in the same way that social media is like, the algorithm is primed to show you sites of outrage and disagreement. And so you have this impression that it's a very angry, negative world out there. And then you go into the world and people are just doing like normie ass shit, like going to bodegas, eating cheeseburgers, just doing normal shit. Similarly on the dating app, it's this game where everybody's on there trying to present themselves like a high stakes person, like a valuable target. But that's nothing to do with like whether someone has a good sense of humor, whether you're going to gel with them. So yeah, again, it goes back to that idea of like interacting with systems, not people. It feels like you're interacting with people in a dating app, but really you're pretty much putting your money into a slot machine and hoping for the best, hoping that it pays out.
It just like the funnel thing that you're explaining, it's like that's what it does to our culture and society. And I'm trying to explain, I think you get what I'm saying. Like, it's like the more it just compounds on itself. It's like the more lonely and insecure you become, the more you desire to be like, to find someone, or and then it like preys on that. When basically, like, we already have that as humans. Like, we already have this sense of like, what if I don't find someone? Like, we already have that kind of insecurity in some, to varying degrees. That's why I feel like I want to speak on it, because for whatever reason, God, if he's real, or she, or they, them, I do think God is they, them, actually, because it's a genderless force. Anyway.
I'm skipping ahead. I'm joking.
They, them, God has, for some reason, given me this sector of my life. Like, I weirdly don't have like, a lot of insecurity or like fear or scarcity around this area of my life. I don't know why. Trust me, I have fear and scarcity in other areas of my life in which I'm not doing well. But like, and I know people are going to hate me when I say this, but like, I do tend to just like attract people in and like I find love, like, and I'm not trying. And again, I don't know why, but like, I've been blessed with it. But I feel like maybe I've been blessed with that because I want to try and like preach the gospel to people in terms of getting in touch with that sensibility in yourself, the insecurity and the scarcity mindset, because the scarcity mindset it doesn't just apply to dating, right? Or love. It applies to all the facets of our life. So it's like that scarcity mindset and sensibility is what they're preying on, because the more lonely you feel, the more insecure you feel, the more incentivized you are to like send this, Sass bro a rose for $10 because, like, I'm not an Instagram model, but maybe he'll accept it. I mean, again, I'm just like, I'm so ashamed of what I did on Hinge. Not for long. I think hopefully it was like a weekend affair. But yeah, the other point that I want to make, that I continue to make on this show, is that, again, going back to the Pope, I'm getting really religious with it today. And really just being open to, is that Jason in there? Or is that you?
Oh, that was me who.
Okay.
He wasn't here earlier.
Okay. Oh, was he spying? Did he hear me say the thing about him coming to New York?
We were off air.
Maybe he'll watch this. Oh, okay. Well, don't tell him.
Yeah.
Don't
No
tell him I know,
problem.
because I'm gonna see if he tells me, and I'm gonna be really mad. I'm gonna do that like nagging mommy wife thing and be like, "Well, you didn't tell me that you were in town." I can't wait to treat him like my ex-husband. When I
You're
met
really
Ben
good at that.
Burgess, when I met Ben Burgess at this like Jacobin socialism conference last year, and we became friends, the first thing I said to him was like, "Hi, I'm one of Jason's ex-wives."
Oh my God.
Or no, I said, "Hi, I'm Jason's ex-wife," and he was like, "Which one?"
That's even funnier.
Yeah, no, that is what happened. That was funnier. Anyway, what was I saying? Sorry guys, I'm like the resident bimbo of the podcast world.
No, don't say that.
No,
Don't say
I wear it proudly. I'm a bimbo who's reading Marx. Okay, we exist. No, like, okay. Be open to, like, I hate when people are like, it's not my type, or like, they're not my type, or like, we have this idea of like who conventionally attractive people are. That is something that I would want to dig into deeper, because like, yeah, I guess it's kind of true that there are like conventionally attractive, like if I see Candace Swinepoel, for example, this Victoria's Secret model, I look at her and I'm like, yeah, that's a conventionally attractive woman. In the sense that maybe like most of us agree, like, yeah, it's a hot woman, I guess, right? But at the same time, who we're attracted to and who we feel connected to is so varied and infinitely complex, at least in my experience, which is what brings me back to the Pope of like, you just can't reduce it to the data of the human, because I have found in my experience that I've been attracted to like all different kinds of people. Like I've been attracted to people who I didn't think were like my type, or, you know, people who were shorter than me. And I can say that because I'm 5'11" basically. So like most men are shorter than me, but like, you know, yes, it's true. I would probably want someone who's bigger than me, because women have been socialized to want to be small and pretty princesses. And so when we're around men and we're larger than them, we feel like monsters. So I'm sorry, I didn't make the rules. But I have been attracted to people who are, you know, I didn't think I would be attracted to. But I found beautiful, amazing, cool, interesting connections. And then, like I said before, I then sometimes would see just like a flat 2D photo of them, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have swiped on that person. And then I would have been left out of this whole connection that I really value with this person. So the whole enterprise, I think, is just fucked up. And I think we should avoid it as much as possible for the reasons that Bram was speaking of, but then also for like the woo-woo reasons that I'm speaking of. Like, I think the whole way that people typically talk about relationships and love and like their type, and it's just really annoying to me, because I feel like it's very close-minded. And
challenge.
you know, you'll never know who you'll be attracted to. You have to like have an open mind and an open heart, you know?
Everybody likes a little strange. Sure.
Yeah. see what you said earlier, though. I think there's some real wisdom in that, Cynthia. Like you said, I'm the type of person that does tend to attract love into my life, but it's not like I'm looking for it. And in a way, like that's when you attract the love that is going to be a lasting or meaningful love, right? Absolutely. Is when you're not looking for it. Like the worst thing that you can do is go out looking for love when you haven't like healed from a bad breakup. Yes. And I think there's a way in which like the apps sort of short circuit that process of closure and healing as well. You know, like if one of my friends, like I'm in my mid 40s now, so I know a lot of people who are going through things like divorce, and that's like the first question out your mouth when you find out someone's getting divorced is like, well, when you're going to go back on the apps, have you downloaded Hinge yet? And it's crazy. Like the advice we used to give people back in the old days is like, heal yourself first, and then you'll attract somebody into your life that's not going to be a rebound or a nightmare or, you know, completely incompatible. So yeah, I mean, I had a question though, as I was listening to you talk about your experience of these, because I haven't had a lot of experience of dating apps. I've narrowly escaped that by, you know, getting into a very serious relationship and then getting married before the apps came on.
Oh God, good for you.
But which is worse? Which is more of a nightmare escape? Ohio Tinder or New York Tinder?
Oh my God. Well, I would say that I wasn't really in Ohio using Tinder, like, using dating apps. I'm trying to think, like, if ever I was like back there and like went on randomly. I mean, again, I don't think I can really speak with authority because I could probably count a number of times like on my hand that I was on, that I tried. Like I tried Tinder once in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 10 years too. So I guess that would maybe be a more accurate portrait of like trying Tinder in Chicago in the year 2014, compared to getting on Hinge randomly in New York City in the year 2022. I mean, it actually really is a market difference if you think about it. But again, I just felt like this soul sucking energy, even back in 2014 when it was like still kind of cool and maybe people didn't consider it to be as, and it probably wasn't as parasitic. Like it was still parasitic, but it, maybe wasn't as like, misery code. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I still just had an unfortunate experience when I went on a date with a guy and then like he got mad that I didn't want to kiss him and then like followed me to the next bar because I was like, I didn't want to go home. I was like, I wanted to like, and then by the way, someone who I met in real life was at that next bar and that incentivized me to want to stay at that bar. And then he like followed me over there. And then he like, yeah, he was like a creep weirdo and then followed me. Or like, I remember I was either walking home or biking home and he like biked past me and was like, fuck you. It was so shitty. And yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'm never doing this again. You know what I mean? This is absolutely terrible. I mean, and again, I'm not saying like, there are people who have met people on apps. There are people who've met people on apps. I mean, look at our mayor. Didn't they meet on Hinge?
Yeah.
I think they met on Hinge. I mean,
that's like Hinge.
That's a success story. They do seem, I mean, I don't know them personally, but like just from my woo-woo perspective, they do feel very right for each other. They feel like they're in love. They feel like they're, in a copacetic relationship. So, and I know people personally, who have met their person on an app and are happy or are married or are together. So it's not necessarily always one thing. But I guess just the more and more the more like death dealing and death drive our culture and our economic society becomes and our technological nightmare becomes, I just feel like you should get off the app. I mean, again, like I said earlier, I took Instagram off my phone and then like sometimes I'll pop it back on and I literally, I notice a mental difference. I notice a psychological change. When I don't have Twitter on my phone, but I will go on Google and get on Twitter on my phone, but I don't have the app on my phone, but that change that you feel is telling you something. Like the reason why you feel different meeting someone at a show and having, a distinct connection with them versus like scrolling through Hinge or whatever. I mean, that I feel like you just pay attention to your feelings. Your feelings are telling you something, Don't alienate yourself from your own feelings. Like the pain is there to show you something that you're not paying attention to. So it's just like we live in such a numbed out culture, where it's just like, it just makes me think of when you're like, you haven't had enough sleep and you're eating poorly and then you're going to work and you're like pounding I mean, I've been in this situation and feel like shit. And then it's like, well, yeah, because you're not, you're not getting sufficient sleep. You're not eating food that's right for your body. You're not, paying attention to what your body's needs are. It's the same with like our emotional needs,
I think that's true. We do have a super chat from Dizzle. Dizzle, I hope you hung on. Dizzle says, doubling back to the work topic, my dad always told me, don't give 2 weeks notice at any job. They ain't going to give you 2 weeks when they're going to fire you.
That's
right.
A good point. Well, that's a good point. Why don't we? Yeah.
I never used to keep things at work because, like, just in case. Yeah. I don't want to have to do a walk of shame with a huge box of pictures of my family that I put up.
Yeah.
Political Economy says, does MT get that $5? So,
oh yeah,
The answer is no. I do not get the $5 from that
Is this
super.
supposed to be a leftist podcast? What are we doing?
Frank MF Lee says Google takes 25% share from Super Chat and then the rest in Jay's board shorts fund. IIUC. I don't know what that means. But I thought it was YouTube that takes 33% of every Super Chat. And Dizzle, I do read Super Chats.
Well, maybe Jason is starting a fund for his trip to New York that he didn't tell me about. So.
He didn't tell you about.
Because he doesn't want to see me. Okay, if you're watching, Jason, I
don't know how much time he'll have. I don't know if I'm gonna see him either for the.
Oh yeah, are you gonna see him?
I don't know. I have stuff for him, so I don't know.
All right. Well, now this is triggering my trauma because I'm feeling left out and excluded. So.
Just give me a head. Real quick, we have another cartoon to talk about. So these are the Flintstones. On the Flintstones, Fred and Barney belong to a community organization called the Water Buffaloes. I talk about this all the time on this podcast. And they would meet at the Water Buffalo Lodge. In 1960, the show's creators thought the average person could relate to this. In 2026, why do adult friendships feel logistically impossible now?
They don't feel logistically impossible, do they?
It's tough. It's tough to have an adult friendship.
Well,
now. If it's somebody new, like starting a new friendship with as an adult.
I will say, as an adult who wants friends, as someone who is as extroverted as I am and has someone who can make friends as easily as I can, I do I moved to New York in 2022 from Chicago, where, I had built in my 20s, had built a lot of different relationships and whatnot. And I do have friends that live here who I already knew before I moved here, but it does feel, particularly for me, like women friends. I need female friends. This is why I've thought about going on the Bumble or whatever, because I think they do have a for friends thing. It doesn't feel as whatever, but yeah, I need female friends who are my own age, who are where I'm at and who want to go and do stuff or, go out to dinner or whatever. And it's kind of hard trying to find that.
Yeah, I'm finding it very hard to sustain friendships as I get older. Part of that's to do with making myself unavailable by being involved in a lot of extracurricular stuff, hustle culture, as we're saying. In particular, writing, you sort of have to accept that you're going to spend a lot of time by yourself. That's kind of a necessary component of being a writer. So yeah, I think for me, the thing I struggle with is feeling like I've got to be the one that puts in the effort. I've never been the kind of person to have a group of friends who will keep in touch and do stuff at the weekend. I'm a one-to-one friendship guy. And that means that if I'm going to extricate somebody from their little group of friends, I need to phone them and message them and do it and sort it all out. And, that does feel tiring. I think the thing that is missing maybe is as well as feeling part of a community of some kind or another. With Fred and Barney in the picture, they're part of some sort of Masonic lodge. Those are the kinds of social structures that we've lost through neoliberalism and through this culture of individualism. But also that idea of community and the word itself has been completely hollowed out by corporate culture and by social media. We have a lot of pseudo communities now, but we real communities very thin on the ground. And, to the extent that you can say a neighborhood is a community because of things like DoorDash, Uber Eats, you're a lot of the things that would have gotten you out of the house and interacting with your neighbors and the people in your neighborhood. The local bars are shut down. All of this makes it very difficult to have a community that you can access. And so you're attracted to a pseudo community online that makes you feel part of a group of people, right? So what's a meaningful community? I think, the gay community is meaningful. When I was growing up and I came out as bisexual, I found my way to bars and clubs that made me feel like part of a community, because we were all in the same place and there for roughly the same things. As we said earlier, I think unions were very meaningful. Again, you've got shared purpose, but you've also got shared space. But what is the neurodivergent community? Like, where does the neurodivergent community meet? Where does it exist in real space? What is a fandom? The Harry Potter community, the Star Trek community. Unless you're at a convention, is it really a community? And that's, let alone being part of some sort of corporate community, like the McDonald's community, the Starbucks card haver community. We've really hollowed out this word at the same time as we've lost all the public space and the cultural space for real meaningful communities to emerge. And I mean, when have I felt part of a community? I mean, first of all, I grew up in the 90s when culture was very, very tribal. So I felt part of the kind of grunge community. And I guess going to see bands that were touring from America with all your friends, you've got an aspect of that. It's harder and harder for bands to tour. It's harder and harder for cultural space to be filled by people who aren't mega brands themselves, who aren't living IP like Taylor Swift. I was part of rave culture growing up as well. And I think for me, that's when I've felt the most sense of community, because even though the shared goal was just like hedonism and escapism, there was something meaningful and almost like ritualistic in the act of getting together in a field, us all taking the same drugs, listening to the same music, going on that journey with the DJ. Even that kind of stuff has become like a corporate culture, like mega clubs, people holding up their phone to see what the DJ is playing. And even the availability of records, like the minute a tune drops now, you can get the digital version, you can play it out in the club. That's very different from going to record shops and hunting through the shelves for a 12-inch that nobody else has. Not to mention the fact that you'd meet people at the record shops who are also DJs or music fans. So again, it's about this hollowing out of public space and of shared non-corporate activities that hollows out community in the wider sense. And no wonder people reach for these kind of pseudo communities online. Even social media. I mean, social media as it stands now is like a giant room where everybody you've ever known is on there, whether it's like your mom's best mate, your auntie's second cousin, your ex-boss, all the people you went to high school with. That's a kind of like enshittified version of what forums were back in the early 2000s to the mid 2010s. Forums were places where people with of like mind and with shared interests would gather to debate things. Now we have Reddit. Now we have, Facebook Marketplace. So again, by making those communities too big, by making them too much into pseudo communities, you lost that aspect of some sort of shared culture or vision or activity, even if it was happening in a virtual space. So yeah, I'm being very cheerful. Things are just getting worse.
I was thinking as you were speaking, because it's like, things are just getting worse. You know what I mean? Things are getting worse, but I feel like the way that I view the past, 75, I don't know math, but since mid-century into neoliberal hellscape that has then trickled down into our current time. It just feels like we're going through this moment of realizing that the water's boiling, oh shit, this is what's happening. Oh fuck. Kind of unfortunately a tsunami that's coming and you're oh shit. And unfortunately we're very, late, and we're kind of trying to clean up the downstream effects of all of this now, because people just didn't know, or they didn't realize, or our boomer parents benefited from probably the most social democratic, at least in the US, the most social democratic type of economic setup that we've ever had, so that they were able to live comfortably and have their meal ticket and, you know, have their job. And then it feels as if, like, during the late 70s, 80s, once, you know, Reagan and Thatcher and all of this started, it was like them holding on for dear life to their stuff. Like, oh no, you're not taking this shit away from me. We have it even if they were unconsciously doing this. But my friend and I were talking the other day too, like, they were also ingrained with the worldview mindset from their Depression parents of scarcity and of like holding on to what you have, and you've never had it so good. And like I know you're a little
like the Great Depression.
What?
You mean like the Great Depression?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I'm a millennial, maybe you're a little more Gen X, but like still we had this, I mean, especially millennials, you know, I feel like the whole thing growing up was like, you're entitled brats, you know what I mean? And like, maybe we were growing up because it was kind of like we were coming from this economic stability that was like handed to us a little bit. But then the real effects of all of that started to take shape. And again, I'm not as well versed as someone who is very learned is, so I'm not going to like be like starting in 1987, but all I'm thinking is like, you know, maybe the 90s, late 90s going into the 2000s, especially in 2010s, it was like, oh fuck, that's the tsunami of like what the fuck is going on. And so now we're at this point of like of dealing with those effects. And I personally, I mean, again, because I am kind of a Pollyanna, like I don't necessarily think that, like, I think that there's kind of a mass awakening happening. I think that there's like mass movements that are happening. I think because people are starting to like become awakened to all of this. But how much we can like really change it is difficult to say, especially because how we've evolved technologically speaking and how we interact with each other technologically speaking, you know, on the apps and on social media and on the internet. I feel like that's very much here to stay. I don't know. I don't see that, you know what I mean? I don't see that like going away, but like, yeah, hopefully maybe more people get off the dating apps. Hopefully something like that can just like go extinct. We don't need that. Like people don't need dating apps. And you know, hopefully more people are doing what I'm trying to do, which is like taking these apps off your phone and limiting yourself, you know, having like digital hygiene, you know, trying to touch grass more and trying to be part of communities in person more, you know, and trying to, I mean, I will say like that is one of the things about being involved in DSA has given me and has helped. And I haven't even been involved as much as I want to be because I've been going through a lot of personal stuff, but like, you know, I've made new friends from there and we're organizing for things together. And now I was invited to like, you know, a party at this guy's house, you know, who's on the committee. And like, I'm going to meet more new friends there, more adult friends. And for personal reasons, I kind of hope the Knicks win in 5 because that means it would be on that day, on Saturday. And then I wouldn't have to be worried about going to work the next day and I could just like party all night and have fun. So for me personally, I would like the Knicks in 5. But like also too with the, what did you say, Bram, about, adult friendships, like having time, like that's another aspect of the work week and the whatever. It's like, yeah, I feel like carving out even a social life for the weekend. Again, people with kids, I'm like, I don't even know how you do it. Like trying to carve out time to dedicate to your social life and to hanging out with a friend here or going to a friend's birthday there. Like that is also, it feels like just like another thing on the plate that, I mean, again, I want to do, but you know, it's like, it's time that you have to take. And especially if you're like us, where you have these other extra, like if you have stuff outside of your day job, you're like, when am I supposed to do this stuff? And for me, I'm like, okay, the weekend. And then I'm like, well, okay, if I'm spending my entire weekend trying to like write a Substack post or like plan out a podcast episode, when am I supposed to hang out with my friends?
Or
you know,
do your laundry or wash your dishes.
do my laundry, which I haven't done yet this weekend. And I just forgot that I have to fucking do today. So
it happens.
I don't want to be negative. I want to like pull attention to the things that we're all starting to notice as I don't want the noticing of the boiling water to be a negative thing. I want it to be like, what is this here to show us? What is this here to teach us?
Mhm.
And I think people are getting the lessons. People are like, we don't want to be working this much. We want more community. We want to be in person with each other more. You know what I mean? We want a more community focused society. I think people are thinking that and feeling that and aiming toward that. And we just have to be intentional about that. You know, we can talk about why everything sucks or whatever, but like also just turning the train around and being like, and this is what we want, you know, and this is what we should focus on. And that's why sometimes I feel like things like DSA are really, or being part of a union, you know, and organizing with your union, feel like you're moving energy. You're not just like stagnate. That's why like online, you know, and being on social media are like, even though you feel some kind of sense of community or venting or relief, it can devolve into being something very stagnant, you know?
Well, hopefully, just having a look at these things, maybe with some curiosity or even humor, and then figuring out where we'd like to go is sort of what we're trying to do with this episode and all of my economy episodes. And hopefully, it's not too much of a downer. Here's an upper. God's plan says Cynthia, especially, seems very extroverted, so that's a big plus for if she's looking. I think it is a benefit if you're gonna touch grass and talk to people, but certainly that's available to extroverts as well, introverts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just because you're an extrovert doesn't mean your life is great. Look at Jason. um, um, Drea says, I think a lot of adults have friends they've had forever and they're not open to adding someone new to the group. I
Yeah.
think you can do sort of what Bram said if you're proactive about the relationship and if you have a specific interest that you can share with somebody, then you don't need to break into their friend group that they've had since they were 6. MK says, I agree that leisure time is becoming more scarce, but I also think people make choices that squander what they have and then complain that they lack community. I
You
think
know, I
this is
wonder
true.
about that.
Mm-hmm. This feels a little bit like avocado toast.
Well, because I wonder, like, did our parents have more leisure time? No, right?
I mean, maybe they did. Maybe I think my parents definitely had more community, and
Yeah.
so there were more babysitters. And so they were able to maybe do a little bit more. I always had somebody, because my parents are immigrants, somebody who had just come to the United States who was getting their paperwork together, who was living in our basement. And so, they were all family and babysitters as well.
Why does it Do you think it just feels like leisure time is more scarce because we are at this point where we're wanting more and we're ready to evolve to, like, say, the 4-day work week? Because we're like, I
Hmm.
think it felt that way back then when they were like, we need a 40-hour work week. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because they were
I,
working like 7 days a week.
If you're
I
worrying
think,
less about your paycheck lasting to the end of the month, you're going to feel like you have more leisure
yes.
time, But that last comment, I mean, I can relate to the part of that about making bad choices.
Hmm.
Like, that's somewhere where I feel I made a bad choice, was to invest any time at all in the curation of an avatar of myself online. I feel like my generation was the first generation to be suckered into that. It was very, very important to me that I came across well on Facebook and was saying witty things, that,
Hmm.
I was like owning people on Twitter, that my Instagram had like pictures of me looking cool. I got fully sucked into that before I realized the negative effects it was having on me. And, like you, Cynthia, I'm struggling to post and delete. Like, I say that's what I'm going to do, but the minute I've installed the app, there's going to be at least a couple of days where I'm scrolling again, and it's the scrolling that's bad, right? Um, the only worse thing that you can do than posting on the internet is like reading the internet or looking at it. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I let a lot of my social networks and my community go in favor of curating an online avatar. So I do hold myself responsible for that choice. And all you can do when you recognize that is like try to walk it back, try to care a little less. And interestingly, like what drove me off social media, although like I say, I do keep getting sucked back in, but what drove me off of being the type of person that posts every day and, you know, is trying to curate a presence to being somebody who posts when I've got something new to share. And again, I'm making excuses here, right? Oh, I've got something new to share. I'm so special. Like, come and fucking look at me. But what I'm saying is the thing that drove me away was I saw people posting in such a way to make themselves look a certain way, in ways that I had, you know, recently recognized that I was doing and that were bad. And it became unbearable to watch. Like the way people, my friends, were like coming across online was making me think, you fucking assholes, like you pieces of shit, you fucking vain, arrogant wankers. Whereas I know that if I know if I hang out with those people in real life, I don't feel that way about them. That's not the way they are. The version of them I was getting fucking really annoyed with is the version they were trying to present to the world, which although it like is a performance of confidence, is actually coming from a place of like real deep anxiety. Although it's a statement meant to make you look like you're having a brilliant life and a great time, it often speaks to the fact that you're trying to give people the impression of that to make yourself feel better, to feel that reflected. So I think, you know, this is something I've written about a little bit is the toxicity of curating an avatar, curating a best version of yourself, allowing yourself to be so invested in that best version that if someone comes and argues with a point that you've made, you take it really fucking personally because they're not arguing with you face to face, where you would have all these accommodations and body language and other sorts of signals. Instead, what they're doing is they're challenging this version of yourself that you're trying to sell to the world. Being involved in that kind of marketing is a choice that I don't think I realized I was making, but it is a choice I made, and I'm still trying to walk it back, like an addict keeping on relapsing, you know.
Yeah.
Let's go back to well, we had the comment that started it all from MK. I just want to close the loop with this and make sure, you know, we're not misrepresenting this person's thoughts. MK says boomers had more leisure time but decided to get TVs and AC to stay indoors and engage less and less with community as industrial society collapsed. I think that last part is important. Industrial society collapsing. These are like their material conditions that they're responding to, which is also what we're responding to. You know, in this year, MK says, I'm not condemning or judging people's choices, just observing. And that is what we're all doing here.
I'm not condemning and judging my own choices.
Don't be too hard on yourself. Red Dogger says, people can't be bored anymore. I blame smartphones. That's a bit reductive, probably, but I think it still stands. I think there's a movement towards people getting hobbies again.
I think so. That's what I'm saying about the boiling water. You know, like I do think that people are trying, or at least in their mind, they want to be trying. I mean, in their mind, they want to be trying. That's basically like me and my whole life. But, you know, like I was just looking up like French classes because I speak French, but it's been a minute and I like really want to, you know, dust up. And there's like this cool like French school and they have classes and they also have like social events, like wine tasting and like, you know, just being out with people. I don't know if anyone else feels this, but like, as like extroverted and as much as I love people and all the shit that I am, I still get like, I don't know, but I'm like scared. Like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, okay, if I feel that way, is this just how people have always felt? Or like, is this a product of our times? You know how people are like, I don't want to order something on the phone because I'm like scared to like talk to someone on the phone. Or like, you know, they're scared to like interact with the delivery driver or whatever. I do feel a little bit of like fear of like going to this, you know, social event with the French school and like, but it's always like once I get there and I'm with people, you know, I'm like,
sure,
go off, but like, I am like kind of scared. And I feel like maybe some of that fear is like does actually cause me to not go after the thing and do the thing and like go out in space and be with people in community, because I do have this initial like fear of putting myself out there. You know what I
I
mean?
think that's the case for everybody these days. I think living is so much bigger than it used to be. Like,
Mm.
you don't want to call for the pizza because you're anxious about talking to the person on at the pizza place. And I used to very much be like that. But, years ago, you knew the bread guy and you knew the cheese guy.
I want the
So,
bread guy and the cheese guy.
yeah, you didn't really have that kind of apprehension. Now we are being taken in by so many people. I think that response to that is natural and normal. It makes sense. We're being perceived by so many people now.
Do you think it is more of a product of our times? Or do you think that people have always, I mean, of course, people are always going to feel at least a little bit scared when they're going into like a new social
Hmm.
situation, they like don't know anybody or whatever.
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
think that it's amplified more these days?
I think it is because there's just more eyes. Sartre
Mm.
said, "Hell is other people," and and that makes sense because you are being perceived by all of these people, and now it's just exploded. It's exponentially more eyes on you. You could be minding your own business on the subway, and
Oh,
somebody takes a picture of you, and then now all of these eyes are on you.
yeah.
You can't even control it anymore. And I think maybe there's something in that loss of control and that being perceived by so many people that is challenging. I think it is what it is. I wouldn't want to go back to having a town square with like 150 people or whatever and spreading diseases to each other really easily and just
Just one bar number, yeah.
I'm
I
trying
feel like I'll take this over knowing the shoe cobbler by first name.
I'm trying to psychologically assess this feeling at the moment because I think there's
Okay.
something in here. Because I
Well,
also someone posted like a thing that was like, come to the community garden. And I've literally walked past the community garden and like seen people in there hanging out. And I was like, I should go in there. And I'm like, no, I'm scared. And I'm like, there's fear. Once the ice is broken, I'm fine. But like, I guess there's just fear of like, yeah, I guess there's just putting yourself out there in an unknown situation with
mhm.
people that you don't know. Which again, this sounds so basic. Like, of course, people are afraid of that. But especially now, it's almost like because we've just more and more and more spent more and more time like online in like the simulation of people and of community. It's this weird feeling where is this like uncanny or something? It's like this weird feeling of like actual community in person feels almost alien. I don't know. It's like, oh, we're doing this. I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this way, but I'm like, oh, we're actually going to the community garden and like having a communal space. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
No, I think everybody feels that to varying degrees. I'm a person who actually really enjoys talking to people online. I think
Yeah.
because it's never lost on me that these are actual people behind the screen. Or at least it was when I first started talking to people online so much. Now it could be a bot, but a lot of times it is a person. It's just sometimes that person is 13 and stupid. Um,
Wait,
sometimes that's who you're arguing with, a person who's 13 and just doesn't know anything. So that's why you don't argue with everybody online. But it's never lost on me that there's a person there, and I actually enjoy the online space. You can always meet people. That's always a possibility. And I've met a lot of people that I've been friends with online for years.
I like this. What Kushlik said, there is a derealization that occurs due to digital predominance. That's why I feel like that's what I'm picking up on, right? Has anyone
Yeah.
read that Slavoj Žižek book, I have it. I feel like I started it a while ago and then I like didn't get it. But it's called like The Real Interpretation of the Real.
Hmm.
But there's got to be something in people who are smarter than me. Something about the real. Maybe this also goes back to Baudrillard. Which again, I have, but like it's really hard for me to retain information. I do like apparently I retained a bunch of information in grad school because look at this. But like if you were to be like, okay, explain the book, I'd be like the simulacrum and like I need to, I have like learning disabilities.
I think that's common.
Well, it's hard for me to retain information. Like I'll read something and it'll like really hit me. Oh, look, a Jacobin bookmark. That's so on brand. But like it's like, yeah, I'll read the book and then I'll be like, wow, that really affected me. And then if someone was like, okay, tell me what the book is about, I'd be like,
I mean, there are methods that you can use, like writing up your own notes. There are people, you just get on YouTube and there are people who can totally help you with that. But wait, we have more cartoons to get to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
2 more cartoons. Here's our next cartoon. Here we have Lucy offering psychiatric help for 5 cents to Charlie Brown. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find therapy for a nickel now, even if it's bad. We can ask our friends for advice, and that advice could be bad. Is getting advice from a chatbot better, Bram?
I mean, this goes to the question of flattery through AI, right? I mean, even leaving aside the question of whether an AI can drive somebody insane, and we know there are plenty of, stories about that already out there about people who've been driven into, taking their own lives or taking other people's lives as a result of delusions that have been fed by, a chatbot. But even leaving that aside, therapy is often about repeating yourself back to you, like reflecting yourself back to you. That's what a good therapist does quite often. It's not like they're giving you life advice or telling you what to do. They're saying, well, have you said this? What do you mean by that? Can you unpack that a little bit? That's not something that a chatbot really can do. It tends more to reinforce. It's also problematic that it's pulling from, stuff that's already out there. Like it's a repetition machine, not a generation machine. It can't generate an original thought for you. It can only extrapolate from situations it's already absorbed. And there's an uncanny valley effect as well. I mean, I think like one of the first chatbots they built, and this was long before even the internet, they found that people were more unwilling to unburden themselves to a virtual companion, even if they knew that they weren't actually speaking to somebody real. Like it wasn't like they imagined that the chatbot was real. It was that there was less impact for them emotionally to unload very personal things to somebody who wasn't real, And so that for me is maybe the key to like why virtual therapy is something we need to tread very carefully around, is that actually they say that the most beneficial thing in a therapeutic relationship is the relationship between you and the therapist. That's why you can't just go to any therapist. Like you can go to any doctor who takes care of broken legs and he will fix your broken leg. But you can't go to any therapist and get good therapy. 2 people can't even go to the same therapist and get the same therapy. Like therapy is so individualized. It's so personal. It's so about the person. We understand so little of psychological conditions. We understand so little of chronic mental health conditions. It's all just guesswork, stuff that's happening in the brain to do with consciousness. And so you really, really have to have a relationship of trust with the individual who's giving you therapy. And if instead you're just speaking to something that is pulling, random strings of language out that might be useful and giving you some sort of self-helpy solution, or even just, pushing you to step back from dangerous thoughts and think positively about stuff. Like it could be useful for self-help, but it's not useful for therapy. And I think the drive towards people using these services is due to the threadbare nature of the services that exist in real life. Like you said, you can't get therapy for, $1. You can't get therapy, and if it's not included in your insurance plan in the States. In Britain, unless you are actively suicidal or the doctor considers you a threat to someone else, then you have a 2 or 3 year waiting list for therapy. Really where therapy or mental health interventions are useful are like before crisis or in the wake of crisis. But all we have is a system that addresses people that are in crisis, and sometimes not even then. And there's also just a feeling that like it's on people to fix themselves somehow. In a culture where they can't access therapy or treatment, they've got to go fix themselves online. This ties in as well with the idea of the kind of anti-carceral approach to mental health treatment. It's all well and good to say that we shouldn't lock people up in institutions, but when they started tearing down mental institutions that house people residentially, the money that was supposed to go on caring for these people in the community and providing them infrastructure and services was never spent. And that's why we have vast numbers of people who are mentally unwell or addicted or both, finding themselves homeless, like slipping through the cracks in society. So, yeah, I mean, to bring it back to the AI chatbots, even if these things worked really well, even if they work for you, they're not solving the structural issues that are driving more and more people to report mental health problems, loneliness, isolation. These are often paying services as well. So again, it's another part of the loneliness economy that depends on extracting money from people who are in need of real connection. So I don't think there's any way that it can be considered real connection, if that makes sense.
I think that's absolutely true. You said a lot of things that are really true and really good there. Dr. Robert Moore says that you're not allowed to say it, right? But when a relationship between a patient and a therapist works out really well, the thing that is helping and is working is love. You're not allowed to say that, though. You have to make it sound more clinical. And so that's one of the major things that's missing when you're dealing with the chatbot. You can deal with your therapist virtually, which is like, through Zoom or whatever. And that's much better than nothing, and much better than a chatbot, and probably better than your friends giving you bad advice, too. Yeah.
And
That love is important. Go ahead.
honestly, Bram, that's growth. I really love what you're saying there about how we need to have. I'm trying to be an AI chatbot right now. Yeah, and also like because I no longer have health insurance, I have resorted to my AI chatbot. I mean, I don't rely on it like for therapy or anything. I wish I could have therapy. I want therapy so bad right now. But like there are just certain things that it's sometimes it's kind of nice to have like a little reinforcement, but I feel like that's all it should be counted on for, like research that you do have to double check, and then like reinforcement, and even then, it shouldn't really be trusted. But like, if you're like, I'm just feeling really, down to, like, if you just need like a little pick me up or something, I don't know. Sometimes it can be a little reinforcing. Sometimes it can be a little bit helpful of like, no, you're doing great. But the joke that I've seen online is like the kind of like toxic therapist AI chatbot, which is like people are like how ChatGPT is talking to like a deadbeat dad. Like, honestly, like, you need to take time for yourself, and like reinforces that dynamic. But yeah, you're right. It definitely is. You need a person. And I'm thinking about like the one therapy session that I went to when I did have health insurance that like I could kind of afford. And I was really just comforted by this man's presence that was a human presence that was very calming, and like I was having really bad anxiety about like the trains because someone like literally just got shot like at one of my close train stations, and like I was having a lot of nervous energy and anxiety about it, and like even in that one moment, like it was so helpful to just have a person being like, you feel really upset. Like, this seems like it really upsets you. And which sounds silly, but like, it really just got me in the moment of like really being like, yeah, this really upsets me, because as you can see, I'm kind of like, I talk a mile a minute sometimes, and I'm like, I talk like about my feelings maybe, and then I'm not really feeling my feelings. And it was just really grounding to have a human being get me into my feelings and really feel them and ask what they're here to show me, versus a chatbot, which is just going to like reinforce the positive mindset and like, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's not, and you're right, it's love. I think that that's what love is. And yeah, I guess you can't say that because it's unprofessional, but like, it's just human love, you know, it doesn't have to be like romantic or
Romantic. Sexual.
yeah.
It's feeling seen and feeling heard,
Yes.
right? Those are the things that you're looking for a lot from therapy. I mean, we talk about, you mentioned like getting advice from your friends. That was one of the reasons I went back to therapy after the NHS said, you know, that's enough. You've had enough. You're back at work now. So therapy ends. I carried it on with a private therapist because otherwise I was leaning too much on my friends. You know, if I was going through a difficult time, I was trying to message them and like take up a lot of their emotional bandwidth. So, you know, luckily therapy is a bit more affordable in the UK than in the US. I was able to pay for it. And it provided me with a space where I felt seen and heard and able to talk without any judgment or consequences for my other relationships in my life. You cannot be seen or heard by a chatbot. And in a similar way, that connects back to what I was saying about social media. You can't be seen or heard by the avatars, even if the avatars are of your friends. Nobody is seeing and hearing you there. We're all just talking. And we're talking to something that doesn't exist. So I think it's really sad to me that you have to rely on that at any point for any kind of validation. It speaks to the fact that these things are lacking in our lives, that we feel driven to use these tools. It's the structural issue that's caused the growth of this technology. It's trying to solve a problem that is, you know, very much of its own creation. It's a creation of capital.
Yeah, like a cottage industry, like driven from the scarcity. Like, yeah, and I just want to say too, real quick, like it's art with words. I was really touched by what you said, how some conversations that we've had have helped some of your past relationships, which I'm like, wow, really? I don't think I am someone to be trusted, but I really, I hope so, because I do just really want to help people. Like I really want to help people. But no, exactly. It's like the AI chatbot therapist is fulfilling a need, but it's fulfilling a need that's based on scarcity and the kind of capitalistic hellscape, especially that we have in the US. I was going to ask you, Bram, how is it, because, you know, because of what we have over here in this shithole, how is it health care wise in the UK with therapy? I mean, you did mention the unfortunate neoliberal talking point that like there's months of waiting, but like, can you just go get a therapist like for free? I feel like I'm talking to an alien. I'm like, can you just go to therapy?
I mean, you can and you can't. I mean, the thing is, in America, if something's wrong with you and you have good health insurance and money, you're going to see the best specialist for that condition that you could possibly see in the entire world. They're going to be like light years ahead of who you would get to see at the NHS. When you go to the NHS, it's free at the point of service. So you're not going to get charged if you go in when you're in the midst of a mental health crisis, and they'll probably take reasonably good care of you. Whether that's residential or whether it's like getting you into crisis care. So if you're suicidal, or if you're having a manic episode, and I've been in that position before of being manic and going into the emergency services, that got me into therapy very, very quickly. But if you go to them and you say, well, you know, you've diagnosed me as bipolar and there are some issues in my past which I would like to work through, the waiting list for that is going to be 2 or 3 years. And so that creates a situation where in order to access the therapy at the time you need it, you would then need to have the ability to pay for it. So it's not that different. But I think, you know, for me, the significant thing from a political reading of this, and I've written a little bit about this in my current kind of series that I'm doing on Substack, is that the goal of the NHS, because it's so focused on crisis, is to get you out of crisis and back into work. It's about reintegrating you back into the system. It's not about necessarily, like if you're well enough to work, if you've gone back to your life in some practical way, then it's very likely that your treatment will stop because there are other people who are in crisis who need the treatment. It's just a constant triage of people in crisis. And so, yeah, it's a very neoliberal model too, even though it's built on this socialist system. And that's because of underinvestment in treatment of mental health conditions that's either preventative or long-term for people with chronic conditions. And a lot of that burden does fall to the individual, for sure.
What if you're like, I mean, what if you're just, you know, like a lame ass hoe like me who's like, I need regular therapy, but like I don't necessarily have a, you know, a condition that is very serious, like, and you just wanted to find a regular therapist that you could go to every week.
I mean, luckily, if you were in that position and you had, let's say, $50 a month, you could probably find somebody that you could speak to. So, you know, I as much as I'm kind of like painting it as this awful broken neoliberal system, and it is in many ways, it's also a completely different world to the capitalist hellscape of American healthcare and insurance. It's a whole different kettle of fish. But, you know, if you were diagnosed with a really rare form of terminal cancer, you know, if they told you have 2 months to live, like, where do you want to be living? Do you want to be living in the UK where the NHS is likely to be the person providing the care? Or do you want to be a wealthy American? I mean, you want to be a wealthy American. But then if you're not a wealthy American, where do you want to be? You want to be somewhere where at least you'll get some standard of care. So, you know, I'm sure neither system's perfect. I think most European countries have a situation where your insurance is tied to your work. So you do have to have health insurance, but they also have, you know, a health service that's free at the point of use. So some combination of that's less evil and profit driven might work, I guess. And I certainly, you know, it's always difficult as a leftist in Britain to shit talk the NHS. It's definitely better than not having the NHS. And the right wing in Britain for decades and decades have eroded the NHS, underfunded it, deprived it of resources, and then pointed at it to say, well, look, it doesn't work, we should introduce private healthcare. And de facto we do have private healthcare now. You know, it's just like probably a boring story, but I had a hernia. It meant that I couldn't work at all. You know, I was off work. The waiting list for surgery was I think it was like 9 months to a year. So by the time I had the surgery on the NHS for free, I would have lost my job. So, you know, I borrowed money in order to pay for it on the private sector. And I think that's, a lot of people aren't in a position to borrow money. A lot of people aren't in a position to get credit. And so they can find themselves too sick to work, but waiting for such a long time that effectively they never get back to work. So yeah, it's dystopian on both sides of the Atlantic for different reasons.
So like, in other words, it is better than the US, but it is still very complicated.
Yeah, and fundamentally unequal and very patchy and very underfunded. Yeah.
And that's on purpose, as we know.
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
That is my understanding of it too. I have a friend who keeps trying to off himself, and I'm like, look, I'll pay for BetterHelp. I don't hear the good things about it all the time, but can I help you get that in the UK? Like, what can we do? And it seems like, yeah, if you need to go to the hospital or be like institutionalized, you'll get help. But if you are slowly simmering in a bad situation, they'll let you just kind of hang out there. Dad Lefty says here, the NHS literally saved my life, but that's 100% true. So
I could say the same, Bad Lefty. I could say exactly the same. The experience of the care that you get when you are in crisis is incredible. And the people that are providing it really care. But it's not going to patch the hole in the massive mental health crisis which so many of us are going through, and which, you know, as Fisher writes, is connected to capitalism. You know, one of my favorite Mark Fisher aphorisms is that affective disorders are forms of captured discontent. That, you know, when we're talking about mental illness, we're talking about the ways in which capitalism deprives people of meaning or structure or support in their lives. Yeah, that remains true.
Another bar from Fisher, as we know.
He's definitely got bars.
He does. let's go to our next cartoon, Futurama. So here we have Fry, who is definitely alienated. He's like the last of his kind where he is. And he's with his friend, a robot, Bender, watching TV. So I just wanted to use this as a jumping off point to talk about our media consumption and how sometimes our online media consumption is not so passive. Sometimes we get parasocial. So, Bram, who are you parasocial with?
Oh my god. I think. Wow. Okay. I think the strongest parasocial relationship I've had is probably with the podcast Blocked and Reported.
What's it called?
It's Jesse Single and Katie Herzog, and they tell stories about internet bullshit. So, during the sort of identity politics wars, they were the funniest podcast talking about cancel culture. And I was going through a period where I was kind of dealing with some fallout from something related to that. Didn't really feel like I had anyone to talk to. Didn't feel like really anybody was like bold enough to speak up against the idea of canceling people in Britain. Certainly not that I knew. And I started listening to that podcast, and like I really began to feel like Jesse and Katie were my friends and the only ones who understood me.
You're about to get blocked and reported, Bram.
It became, a way that I could laugh about a situation that in my life had like grave stakes. It became a place where I was hearing more diverse political opinions about it than I was hearing in my own sphere. So I still think I have a weirdly parasocial relationship with those two podcasters. And I think podcasts sort of lend themselves to parasocial relationships, right? You're spending an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours in the company of somebody and their voice and their manner. And particularly if that is turning a source of pain for you into a source of entertainment, that can be quite a powerful drug. But no, I don't think I like believe that I'm friends with Jesse and Katie. Maybe I believe I'm part of the Blocked and Reported community, because I post in the threads and stuff. But no, I mean, I don't know if I have like a parasocial relationship on the level of, having an obsession with a pop star or, feeling like in some way I'm a meaningful part of. I recently watched the latest of the long series of Michael Jackson documentaries that came up. I found that pretty striking because this was, we talk about parasocial relationships a lot in the context of social media, but so many people had a parasocial relationship with Michael Jackson. When you see the crowds outside the court, and there's no question of them listening to like the facts or the testimony of any of the people involved. To them, this was a holy figure who was completely innocent and could never be guilty. And they'd shown up outside of court to hold up signs and jeer at the witnesses as they were going in. I mean, that's a parasocial relationship right there. So again, I don't think these things are like necessarily like a thing that only happens in the digital age, right?
Sure.
But yeah, can you have a parasocial relationship with something that isn't real? That's going to become a more and more important question, I think. As chatbots get more real, as people get more used to the idea of having a virtual girlfriend or a virtual boyfriend, that very much is a parasocial relationship, but it's with something that doesn't exist.
Right.
So yeah, this is where we start to get into like interesting territory. Is what if all the relationships are become parasocial?
There are chatbots that can talk to you as a character from a book that I guess you're parasocial with. And that's a few levels of not real that I'm just like, I don't know what to do. You talking to like characters from Game of Thrones and like falling in love with them.
That I'm actually into. I would be so sold on that. Like, I want to have a conversation with Heathcliff. Like that. Or Don Gately from Invest. I'm embarrassed, but I'm not embarrassed to say that I'm very cringe, I think, about like Crystal Ball and Breaking Points. She's my queen. I love her. I'm sorry, but she's also a Sagittarius, and I just feel really connected to her. Because
I
she's
like the white girlness of it all. That's very cute. I like
you
that.
don't like her at all? Is that what you said?
No, I said I like the white girlness of it all. I think that's very cute, and I like that for
I
you.
kind of with if I'm gonna be DEI with it, I kind of like her and Brianna Joy Gray are like my, you know, if I'm gonna be equal, it's not just white women. Okay, I do love Brianna as well because I just really value like intelligent women.
Mhm.
We're very like, I mean, Brianna's also a Leo, so I really love fire sign women.
She's a Leo, yeah.
But I know I'm so oh my god, I'm so cringe, but like I well, I'll explain why I don't think this is actually that cringe. But I did go to like a live podcast taping, a Jacobin thing with like Vivek and Crystal, and I got to meet Crystal, and I was like, I'm a Sagittarius too. Oh God, I was like so annoying. And she was like, we're both wearing lace tops, so I guess we are like. And I was like, oh my God. We were both wearing lace tops.
That's so cute.
Also Vivek Chibber I'm parasocial about Vivek Chibber because he was at that event. I met him at the Jacobin thing where I met Ben, and the second time that I said hi, I was like, "Hey, Vivek!" Like I actually we were like brunch friends, and at the podcast taping. Oh, Drea, you're a Sagittarius too? Oh my God! You know, what's his name? Jason is a Leo. And
yes,
he is definitely a fucking Leo, okay?
He's 100% Leo.
Yes. But we love him so much. No, but I saw Vivek for the second time. Yeah, I was like, hey, Vivek. And then I was like, do you remember me? I met you at the Jackman conference and I like asked what your sun sign was and you told me it was Taurus. And he was like, yeah, I do remember that because I thought it was really weird. So
he's so like that. It's an identity.
And he
doesn't want that.
I'm sorry, but Vivek Chibber is such a Taurus, but you know what? I have a suspicion that Vivek Chibber has a Sagittarius moon, maybe, or some sort of like Sag in there, some sort of like, because he is low key a Pollyanna, like inside, like he's very, I mean, at this Jacobin taping, that was kind of like the joke was like, you know, I think Vivek was a little bit like Pollyanna pilled, like he was like excited about like the future of the left. And we don't usually get that from him, right? So I'm sure all of this has made me very available to these people and they're excited to ever come on a podcast if I ever do one and not be creeped out by me. But I will say that about the parasocial of it all. Like, I think everything's a spectrum. I mean, yeah, of course, like, you can be weird and I mean, I guess I'm about to sing a white female crystal ball, but like you can be very creepy and weird and annoying. And I get it. Being a creepy, weird fan at the same time, like that's still a person, you know, it's still a human being. And like we were saying earlier, I mean, you're connecting with them. There's something about not them as but like what they're doing, their work, what they're producing as a person in this field that connects with you in some way, that resonates with you. And I mean, unfortunately for me, like, do I want to like sit around, you know, have like a salon with all of these thinkers? Yes, I do. Because to me, that's like, it's not about like being around micro celebrities. It's about like it's about connecting with people. And I'm like, I would love to just be deep in, I mean, that's what Ben and I did when Ben and I met, you know, we met and, you know, at first I was like, oh, I've like seen him online. But then like, we were just like talking the whole night, you know, we were having beers and we were like with a group of people all having beers. It was like a socialist social. And we were, you know, and we were connecting, we were talking. Now Ben and I are friends. And actually I didn't tell you, I don't know if I told you guys, but I moderated a debate between Ben and Sohrab Ahmari recently in person.
Moderator, wow.
I know. I mean, I didn't think I did a great job because I wasn't super prepared because, you know, the life with the fucking corporate hellscape office job situation. But it was kind of a discussion about like right versus left populism, which I thought if I was more prepared, I could go like deeper on. But I'm just making the point that yeah, there's like this parasocial, it can get into single white female, you know, parasocial, annoying, weird fan territory, of course. But I don't think that you should just dismiss, you know, that feeling of resonance and connection that you have with people who are saying shit that's firing up something in you. And like, if you are an intellectual, which I'm assuming everyone here seems to be, you know, someone who's interested in these ideas and interested in talking about them. Yeah, if we're going to talk about community, guess what people used to do? They used to have salons, you know, they used to gather around together, intellectuals and philosophers and writers and artists. And like, that is my personal dream. I want to win the lottery because I'm trying to tell God right now, I'm like, I don't want to just win the lottery to buy cars and clothes and bankroll some hoes. Okay. I would like to do those things maybe a little bit, but I want to win the lottery because I want to have, my dream is to have like, you know, a house, like a house or like a townhouse or whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy, just like a space in Brooklyn where it can be like a salon, you know, like a space where people can gather. That's not a bar, you know, that's like someone's fucking home, and it's like decorated. It's very like old Victorian, early, you know, turn of the century. It's like tons of books, and it's, I have this vision, you guys. And so if I do win the lottery, we are going to have salons, and we're going to have them in person. And again, we can still exist online. We get it. But like, it would be really fun. You know what I mean? It's just,
we're having a salon right now.
I know we are having a salon right
2
now.
continents.
I'm just making the point.
2 islands.
Yeah.
3 islands. 7.
I'm trying to, we are getting our hair done. Yes, we are. Yeah, I'm just making the point that like my dream is to have Slava Žižek and like Charlie XCX and like Vivek Chibber and like,
You're describing the socialist version of Sovereign House here.
Yes, I want the socialist version of Sovereign House because I've been to Sovereign House and it was hell and it was disgusting. You know, it was just like this soul-sucking, like back rooms type vibe. I mean, I hated it. I want the socialist version of Sovereign House, and I want it on my terms. And hopefully Vivek Chibber will come and I can read his whole chart.
I'm definitely hoping for a guest list spot on this, and preferably a +1, because I would be there with bells on.
I know. I want to bring people bring Bram, bring all the people that I've met on this. You know, I want to like, I'll fly Jason out because I'll have won the lottery by then. So I'll fly Jason out. I'll fly Ben in. You know, I can make it happen. We are manifesting it, you guys. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow is like complete the vision board. So.
One writer who was really good on parasocial relationships is Philip K. Dick, and I'm like obsessed with Philip K. Dick at the moment because I'm researching a book on him. It really struck me when I was thinking about this like aspect of what we were going to talk about today about parasocial relationships, that he really was so contemporary in the way that he was describing this. So, you know, a lot of his heroes are sort of very neurotic and isolated. They're lacking connection for one reason or another. A lot of them have pretty toxic attitudes to women as well. But, you know, he has characters who are addicted to virtual therapies. There's one guy who carries around a psychiatrist in a briefcase called Dr. Superb, with the idea that Dr. Superb will make him just mad enough to not be sent to Mars as a colonist. And in Do Androids Dream of the Electric Sheep, you know, they've built replicants as virtual companions and virtual workers. They've got a virtual religion that you experience through a thing that sounds a lot like a PlayStation. You grip its handles and you get to inhabit the body of Jesus effectively for 15 minutes. You know, or he just writes about people who are kind of escaping from reality, whether through drugs or through, you know, through things like the virtual reality Barbie game and Three Stigmata. So yeah, I mean, it's not like this stuff. Again, it's not like this stuff has sprung fully formed from the kind of online way of interacting with each other. These are sort of deep themes of human experience. You know, in the one I just finished by Dick, which was the Simulacra, there's a significant proportion of the people on Earth who've gone to Mars to be colonists. But Mars is so barren and empty and boring that there's a thriving market for virtual companions, virtual neighbors. And so the idea is that you'll be the only living person in your little Martian farmstead. But, you know, the Smiths next door and the Joneses 2 doors down the road are robots who are there to make you feel like you're part of a community. Yeah, and it's just crazy to me that he was writing this stuff in like 1955, 1966, you know. It really speaks to where we're at. right now.
Well, speaking of parasociality, I'm a little surprised to hear that neither of you are willing to admit that you fantasized about going to Cuba with Hasan Piker to deliver medicine.
Oh, I would have loved to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, God, I need to not. Oh my God, I need to shut up. You guys, I'm a Sagittarius sun, Gemini rising, which means I can't shut up and I just say whatever's on my mind. I shouldn't have said that.
I mean, the world needs people like that.
Well, I would have loved to do like mission, yeah, like because I've never been to Cuba and like I want to see what's going on. I mean, again, if I had money, I would love to do like these journalistic missions where you like go, like what I would love to do, because I'm involved in like healthcare, organizing with DSA. I would love to go to like, yeah, like the UK and go to like all these places that have or allegedly have, better healthcare systems and literally just like interview people and talk to them about their experience with the healthcare systems. I mean, again, we can manifest that, but from where I'm standing right now, it feels very far off because I'm literally just trying to like write one stupid Substack post. I mean, that's all that I can produce at the moment. But no, I would have loved to do that. I get that people are, it's performative. Look, Hasan is also a Leo. Okay. So
That's very true.
Leos be wanting attention. We all know it, okay? Like they want the attention. They like the spotlight. Like we get it. Things are multifaceted. I think that there is an aspect of that, maybe. I don't think that though the entire project is like somehow devoid of genuine, intent. I think that also coexists with it. And I think, getting people to see what's going on. Cause I didn't have any idea what's going on in Cuba or what's happening or, how the US is contributing to that. And having a story like that opens up my eyes to it. I'm surprised that like more people aren't doing that all of the time. I mean, I don't know. That was a really ignorant statement. People probably are.
Yeah. But we don't know, and I think that's part of the problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, are we only paying attention because he's like a nice-looking streamer? I mean, maybe. But listen, this is unfortunately the world that we live in. If you are conventionally attractive, to bring it back to a loop, if you're kind of conventionally attractive, if you're a good speaker, if you have charisma, you get attention. I mean, look at Zoran Mondani. Like, he's a very successful politician for many reasons, but also he can talk really well and he has charisma and he can interact with people really well. And unfortunately, those things matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think also maybe it's good that we don't always know who's helping in Cuba.
Oh.
I mean, that was a very high profile thing that they did, but also I think it's fine and good and great if we don't know. I mean, there are people who are just doing their thing and we don't know. So for me to take a moment to say something I shouldn't say, I will give, yes. No, I'm doing it for you, Cynthia.
Yeah, sure. I know. Do it for yeah.
I'll talk about who I'm parasocial with. Well, I actually, while thinking up this part of the show and the questions, I was just like, I don't know that I've really been parasocial with anybody. I mean, I have a unique background in that I used to watch This Is Revolution. And then I started to hang out after the shows and talk to Jason. And then it just kind of built. And then soon I became a moderator. And then I became like a guest and then like a co-host. And now I'm hosting by myself without that guy.
Climb that ladder, baby.
It's kind of crazy, the little takeover here. So I have kind of a weird relationship to parasociality, I guess. But if I had to think of somebody I was maybe parasocial with, like the most recent and the thing that pops off the top of my head might be Bram.
Oh,
I had to get ready for the show with Bram, and I decided to read like all of his numbered essays on his Substack. And I was like, oh my gosh, he needs a hug. Oh,
I can't wait to read them. Oh my god.
This guy. So in another dimension, maybe we're married. How about that?
Oh my God. Wait, are you married, Bram?
He's married in this
I am
dimension.
married. Unfortunately, I'm taking in this dimension. I'm sorry to say.
Okay. Well, yeah, that means that, I mean, I do. Okay, well, that's getting really woo-woo with it. If I'm going to be talking about other lifetimes and other dimensions. I think it is funny that I do feel like Jason is my ex-husband, because I do think he was my ex-husband in another lifetime.
I feel like he's everyone's ex-husband.
I know. He's like the ex-husband of the left.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He is very archetypically ex-husband vibes. Because like I don't know, we just bicker. Or we like, and then I was like, I just feel like you hate me sometimes. And he was like, I'm just a crankety old man. I'm like, well, you are. But
he says that to you? He's a cranky old man.
Yeah, because I said I just feel like you hate me sometimes. He says he's a cranky old man, which he is. But yeah, I don't think it's weird to feel resonance and connection with people that you follow online or when they're having conversations, because duh. You know what I mean? It's only weird. It's where people go with it. So if you go with it in a direction that's cringe and uncomfortable, I don't know if you can hear that, but I feel like people are blasting Jadakiss outside right now.
It's New York.
It's great, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I can be a little cringe with it, because admittedly, like when I meet people in person, I'm like someone tweeted about like that random feeling when you like meet a micro celebrity. Like it is kind of like, oh my, I'm like a little starstruck. You know what I mean? Like, again, always going back to my king, Vivek Chibber. Like when I met him in person, I was like, oh my God, like it's Vivek.
He's dope though. I mean, just like a hatchet. His
king
was like a hatchet to me.
I know. Like I met him, and did I meet Chris? No. If I meet Chris Hedges in person, I'm gonna be so excited. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I would have liked to have met Michael Brooks. I don't think I was parasocial with him though.
Is that weird? Is this like weird and cringe that I'm saying this? Sorry.
It's the topic. You are bound by the topic to answer these questions.
I just get real. Okay, I'm sorry, but in my defense, I just get like really excited to meet people. Like I just get like so excited. Oh, well, yeah. Okay, well, no. Okay.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to ask the next question.
Okay.
Has anyone let you know that they have a parasocial relationship with you?
Well, you just did for me to say.
Yeah,
so you're excluded.
I hope not. I don't. That's the one shitty thing. I mean, Toussaint not having her face is very smart.
It helps a lot of things. I could have never said that if I was showing my face.
Yeah, I wish I didn't show my face. But I'm a Sagittarius, so a part of me does really want and likes the attention. But like, I wish I didn't, because it is harder being. I think it is harder being a woman.
Much harder.
100%. People feel more entitled to women who share their any kind of presence online.
Yeah, and men are weird. Exactly, bad lefty. Men are. I'm sorry, men are weird.
And I was part of a community that was like centered around a writer, right? So he was a comics writer, and that community was like an amazing thing to be part of. One of the reasons it was amazing was this was a very educated guy with really esoteric influences, and so the people attracted to his work and to the forum that we were all part of all brought that to the table as well. You know, it did feel like a community on that forum. But it turned out that one of the things he was using that forum to do was to farm young women who were into his work into being cam girls for him.
Oh God.
And he ended up being called out for this, and it pretty much ruined his career. But that for me was like it just came back to me that this was a good example for this bit of the chat, that he really cultivated parasocial relationships with him. And that was evident while you were on the forum. There was a lot of a feeling that like everybody was sort of performing for this writer's attention, and that to have his attention to be beatified by the light and the warmth of his attention was like something of the goal there. And to then find out that the whole thing was in fact something of a shell game for him to be able to manipulate and exploit women, it leaves a really nasty taste in your mouth. And, you know, I mean, I briefly touched on cancel culture there. I think it's very deeply personal whether you can separate the art from the artist, right? Like that's going to depend on a whole bunch of very subjective factors.
Yeah.
But one of the things this guy was famous for was like writing quote unquote strong female characters. And now I can't reread his work, despite the fact I still love it, because it just comes off as creepy now, like the things that came off as empowering. And, you know, so there's something about being aware of that dimension of parasocial admiration that puts you in a quite a vulnerable position if it's some sort of Svengali figure. You know, I mean, like, was it a community or was it a cult? That was the question, really, that we were left with. And look, you know, in the rearview mirror, it looks more like a cult. And yeah, I mean, I think cults are a thing that get more and more attractive as we become more atomized, because cult is a system of meaning centered around this parasocial relationship with the leader and their philosophy. Yes. And as the cult goes on, it gets more and more intense. There's that great show on at the moment called Bring Me the Beauties, I think it's called. It's about a male model that ran a self-help cult during the 80s, where you have the Nixon cult, you know, that kind of celebrity weird sex cult thing. So, you know, I think we're definitely living through an era where, because we're so used to having parasocial relationships now, we're more vulnerable to cults. And the hardest place to spot a cult from is right inside it, right? That's the hardest place to recognize it from.
Yeah. Like MAGA around Trump. I mean,
100%. Yeah.
It becomes, I mean, again, that's like, it's where people go with it, right? And you can get very easily, it's just like, you have to be careful. It's like with anything in life, you know, having to moderate, like having social media apps on your phone, you know what I mean? Is it necessarily inherently bad or harmful? No, but it's where people go with it, and it's where you can go with it if you're not careful. I mean, you know, following your favorite people online and then becoming like obsessed with them, or, you know, only what's the word? Like, I don't know what the word is, but like only, you know, trusting their point of view and not ever thinking critically about it, you know, and then obviously getting obsessed with them in some type of way. And then also just like using that as an excuse to just kind of like stay online and be only online and not, you know, do anything outside of that. I think someone explained a lot of like lefty, you know, shows and podcasts and YouTube clips and YouTubers, that it can be very much like leftist Tucker Carlson. Like you're just tuning into Fox News to like get your, and I think there is a little bit of cause I notice myself, I'll want to watch this person or this person like rant about this. And there is a little bit of a like release that happens about the venting, which I think is kind of necessary. And I think I think it can be good and helpful, but it's just, if that's all you're doing all of the time, I don't think that's ultimately very helpful. You know, you're just basically swimming around in a stagnant pool, and there's no genesis of anything moving forward. And then obviously once again, coming back to the way everything is all set up, I've worked in media and I work in media, and I know how these things work, which is that people are incentivized to be salacious, and people are incentivized to do the thing that gets the most clicks, and people, you know, because that's the business model, because you have to keep swimming forward or else you die. So it's like, you know, then it becomes this whole cottage industry of like rage and venting, and you're not actually moving forward in any type of way. So it's like, is it inherently wrong and bad? No, not necessarily, but can it become dysfunctional? Absolutely. And, you know, with that said, I feel bad. Sometimes I feel bad for men, because I feel like men, you know, are always afraid of coming off as creepy. I know how you feel, because when I met Crystal Ball, I felt like I was really creepy and weird. And I was like a little bit drunk. Like I have a very low tolerance, and I hadn't drank in like months, and I had like 1.5 beers, and I was like wasted. And I was just like kind of talking in circles. I wasn't really making sense. And I think she was like, get this bitch out of here. But we did connect on the lace tops. So
That's what's important. You've got your foot in the door.
yeah.
Soon you'll be shopping for lace tops together.
Well, my dream would be, I was just thinking about this morning when I was watching some Breaking Points, getting my news. I would love, I'm like, can't I just like work on freelance, like as an admin or like a assistant doing like work that they need for for different like, journalists and podcasters that I like, because I would much rather be doing that. You know what I mean? Than doing
If there was a guild, like a collective, I was just watching a Michael Burns podcast episode about where they talked about if there was like a leftist podcast guild,
Yeah.
you could share, editors and people who do your thumbnails and stuff like that. And I guess it's obvious. I would work for that guild, and I guess it's obvious you would too.
If we're unionized, and I'm in. Like,
yeah, I know.
count me in.
Exactly. Like we're like if we built like basically like a media empire, no,
Right.
I mean, seriously, because it's a counterforce. You know what I mean? All of the other media empires are just bought by billionaire Zionists now. So I don't know. But yeah, I understand the feeling of being creepy to someone that you're parasocially connected to.
Yeah. Well, so to close out, let's see if we can answer this and sort of wrap things up in a bow, pull all these threads together. Why does loneliness increasingly feel collective but private?
Ooh. Banger. I don't know, Bram, go.
He has all the answers.
He does. That's why I'm like, Bram.
That's definitely the hardest question of the day. I think the answer to that, if I can kind of try and put it as simply as possible, is that when you feel invisible to society because you're lonely or you're disconnected or you can't get a job, or you don't have opportunities, or you're mentally unwell, or you don't know how to talk to women, you feel alienated from yourself as a social being. At that point where you feel invisible to society, that's when you're the most visible to this new economy that's arisen. That's when the economy can see you the clearest, and it will attempt to fulfill the need that is a very real and human need for connection, for understanding, for being seen, for being heard. It will attempt to fill that with a virtual product. So I think that's really key. That's what you've got to remember when you're in that situation where it feels like, connecting to something that is virtual, whatever that might be, whether it's an AI chatbot, a room full of, the avatars of your friends on social media. If there's any virtuality to it, if it is a simulacrum, it might feel real. It might feel more real than the messy, difficult human world of interactions. But you are at that point, you are very much subject to marketing, manipulation, emotional pushes and nudges. And that has a very warping effect on the way that you see the world. And I think ultimately a negative effect on your ability to operate in the real world. And it's a very, very slippery slope, that one. And that's, that's how you end up in the basement of somebody's apartment, not paying rent because, you're sitting there with your mom or something and, playing video games and connecting with people who are just there to, play Call of Duty, and that becomes your world. It's very easy to slip into that nether world where all you're doing is consuming product, but you're thinking of that as community, as interaction. And I say that as somebody who feels like I've been sucked into that myself at times, and I'm trying to detox a bit from social media in some similar ways to what Cynthia was describing. But yeah, I think that's where I would leave it. Really, is that at the point where you don't feel seen, they sure as fuck see you.
Mic drop.
I know. I'm like, I don't know if I can like.
How do you follow that?
I know. I mean, what was the little thing that you said that was so insightful?
At the point where you feel least seen, that's where the economy sees you most clearly.
Well, yes, Bram, but I'm sorry, I actually meant Toussaint. What was the original?
Oh, my bad.
Sure, no problem. That was the best part, though. Why does loneliness increasingly feel collective but private?
Yeah, because it's this weird, it's weird dichotomy that we somehow feel so connected because we're even more connected than ever, but we feel, more alienated from each other than ever and lonelier than ever. I would just like to say everything that Bram said. So great.
That's really good.
But yeah, everything that Bram said, I'll just like ditto that. And then I'm a great podcast guest. But then, I mean, okay, I guess where I'm maybe a somewhat adequate podcast guest is that, I my mind starts to go into like woo-woo territory because I just think about capitalism as a system. Okay, maybe I won't go there. Maybe that's too woo for everybody. But like, have you ever heard of like cosmic capitalism? Like basically the system that we have recreated on Earth is like, okay, let me not go there. Let me just say this. Extraction. Like it is said in spiritual circles that whomever exists outside of this world has a vested interest in, okay, good. Someone said no, but go on. Okay. Let me just, has a vested interest in Earth for extraction purposes. Which actually, even if you're not like super woo-woo and you don't believe in aliens, like that kind of makes sense, right? That like there could be other life forms that exist outside of Earth. And there could be reason, just like how we have extraction, ambitions going to other places on Earth, how people colonize different areas on Earth, that like there could be life forms outside of us that have the same intention. So it's almost as if we like created the same system here, and it's how much can we extract from people, how much we can extract from the land, and now it's how much can we extract from people's time and attention and data. And just something when Bram was riffing like a king, I just had this idea that like, yeah, the more vulnerable that someone is, the easier it is to extract from them. The more vulnerable that like a nation is, like the easier it is to extract resources, like the more vulnerable. So what makes you have to, at the same time, I feel like the vulnerability is what makes us the most human. And it actually, there's the belief that there's the false premise that the vulnerability is the weakness, but actually the vulnerability is the strength. What I was pointing to earlier, like kind of bringing it around to this earlier point that's sort of surprising me right now that that's where my brain is going, but how I was like, I'm scared to go to the community garden event. Like, why is that? And when I really dug into that psychoanalytically, I'm like, yeah, because it's very vulnerable. Like it's extremely vulnerable to get out of the comfort zone of the safe, watching my breaking points and, listening to my podcast people and feeling like I'm interacting with people and staying in my own little space. It's very vulnerable and it's work. It's like emotional work to put yourself in those situations, to put yourself out there. I mean, I'm going through this right now with like putting myself out there, and like writing and wanting to start a podcast. And I'm so terrified of it. But at the same time, like the vulnerability is here to teach us something about ourselves and about life. And that's like the beauty of life that an AI chatbot just can't, it can parrot your feelings of vulnerability, but it can't ultimately get to that core vulnerability. So I feel like in this moment, yeah, they do have us, by the whatever your parts are, whatever your private parts are, because of our vulnerability. But at the same time, the vulnerability, I think, is the key out of this, is to really get in touch with those aspects of yourself and to remember that it is your strength. Like, I mean, just for example, me going to the community garden thing, like when I really get in touch with those feelings and I get scared and I'm like, well, but this is what makes me human, and actually kind of get excited about it, like meeting other people and meeting new people and like, and being scared and excited, like leaning into the fear a little bit can be a strength. So hopefully we can learn that and, sort of try and carve out a new world. I know it's a big vision for us, but just step by step. Maybe the first step is going to the community garden event.
I think you should definitely go, and I think that's really well put. That like your vulnerability is also your greatest source of untapped strength. If you can step into that space, that's powerful. No, I 100% agree with that.
Someone said, after all this, you better go to the community garden. And I literally just, I'm like, I have to do laundry. I don't know if I can go. Okay, I'll go down and I'll see what time it is, and I will try and go there on my way to the grocery store. Look at that, baby steps.
MK says, at the very least, get to know your neighbors, folks.
Yeah.
Please just do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always good.
It's always
and it feels good.
Well, and the people across the street have the TV out on the sidewalk watching the Knicks.
Shut up.
No, I'm not going to go listen to Majority Report. I'm going to go to the community garden, and I'm going to hang out with the people across the street and watch the Knicks on Monday. And actually, my laundry room does close at 7:30, weirdly. Well, no, I have to actually go at a certain time. But we are going to try. We're going to try. It's okay. Baby steps. Even if it's just, you go to one social event where you're scared, just try it,
So Bram, what are you working on now? Where can we find you?
I am just coming to the end of a year-long series on masculinity that touches on quite a few of the topics we've discussed today, including sort of the loneliness epidemic. So that's coming to a conclusion next month, and hopefully have a print edition ready for August. It's called Crisis Masculinity. Apart from that, making my way through lots of Revol books. You can see a couple behind me. Oh, no, that side. So we've just released a new one by Daniel Tutt and C. Derek Varn, which we're very excited about. So yeah, beavering away on Substack. You can find it all at strangeexiles.substack.com.
Oh my God. Once again, how do I follow up to that shit? Bram, unfortunately, Bram is married, ladies. Good for you, Bram. Unfortunately. Yeah, I also have books that I'm working on back there, but I've been working on them for months because I'm a slow reader. And I guess Jason described me in the beginning as a chaotic good. I'd say that's very accurate.
I described you as chaotic.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Toussaint.
It's not all about Jason.
No, you know what? You're right. Like, I believe women, like women power. But yeah, I'm working on those books back there. I'm getting through those books. I have a Substack called Salacious Reason. I got on like an interesting kick where I was like putting out some Substack like weekly things, and then I like released an essay, and then I like moderated this talk between Ben and Sohrab, and then I kind of like got tumbled under the negative momentum. So I'm still working on that. Ideally, I would like be putting out Substack posts like regularly. And Ben has been on my case for getting this fucking podcast started, but I really want to do a video podcast, and I would love to do it in person in my space. And I think it's totally possible. Like, I mean, this lighting that I got, I just, got this like stupid ass light on Amazon. I think it's totally possible, but I don't have money either. If you haven't noticed, I don't have money, and I need to be able to like buy equipment and all this bullshit. So I'm working on those things, but I think things just take me a really long time to do because I'm a Taurus moon, you guys, and I'm very slow. But everyone, if you know your moon sign, drop it in the chat.
What is the name?
Figure out Pivek Chibber's chart. We are going to figure out Pivek Chibber's sun, moon, and rising by the time.
That is so funny. What's the name of your Substack?
It's called Salacious Reason, because Sagittarius Sun, Taurus Moon. It feels very like that is how I am. It's like I love the tea, I love the gossip, I love the fun. But I also am very like, we need to suss out all of these details and critical, have a critical thinking about it. Like very, very big on reason, love and reason, love reason.
It says bimbo core philosophizing.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's
Holding
gonna
up a Neutral Milk Hotel CD.
That's
do.
hot.
All right. Hey,
Thank you.
sounds deep. So yeah, thank you guys. You can find me here. I will be hosting more shows. Thank you so much, Bram and Cynthia. This worked out. I mean, I was very concerned about the tone. I didn't want anybody to like jump off a bridge or anything, and I think we achieved that. We talked about loneliness with compassion and intelligence and humor,
Hopefully. I hope it was
which is
entertaining.
important. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll definitely be working with these two some more too. And tell a friend about this podcast. We're really hoping to grow it some more. Yeah, let's do more like this.
It was
Can't
lots
wait
of fun.
soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good one, everybody. Let's go out with some cartoons. And happy Friday. And good luck to Jason. Bye.
Good luck in New York, Jason.
Yeah, good luck in New York, Jason.